Friday, coast to coast, the CFL is Canada's game. And the world comes after party, ready for the fun.
To see Roy Simon and say goodbye.
Just like that, Kenyon Rambo.
It's Friday night football tonight. It's Friday. It's Friday night football tonight. It's Friday.
Hi, everybody. Well, Wally Buono is back in Calgary at McMahon Stadium, the place where he coached for 13 seasons. But now, those sidelines belong to the Coach of the Year from last season. That is Tom Higgins. It's the Lions and the Stampeders, a Western Showdown tonight on Wendy's Friday Night Football. Dave Randorf with you, Chris Schultz, Matt Dunnigan, and Jock Climby as always. And look who's on top of the CFL's West Division. The Calgary Stampeders with their record of 3 wins, 2 losses. They're not running away with it, mind you. It is very tight, but right now it's the Lions who are bringing up the rear in 4th spot. Their late season struggles from last year have carried over to this year, Jock, and I want to ask you, football expert, guy, yeah, you, why? Why is that?
Hey, well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not the players that this football team has. You know, if you look at the players in the lineup on paper, they're fantastic. If you look at them in the stats, hey, they're in the middle of the top of every category. They have got a sensational quarterback. Not only just what he does in between the years, but his pinpoint passing. Look, this guy is the most accurate quarterback in the league making throws like this. On defense, hey, this team is second in the league in sacks. They lead the league in interceptions. So what could be the problem? How could it be that they are 3-10 going back to last season? Well, it has to be the intangibles. It's the only explanation. I think it goes back to the whole controversy last year with the Dickinson and Printers thing. I think this team has not gelled. I think this is a coaching issue that they've got to bring this team together. It's not too late. They're the potential to be the best in the league.
You know, I really agree with your assessment of the talent, but I think what happens with the BC Lions is something negative in the second half. They have been outscored this year 80-42. So how do you get over it? Well, you have to become aware of it, because at halftime, players the first 5 minutes is theirs. They recover. Then all of a sudden, all these little meetings kind of break out and everyone talks about adjustments. Well, tonight, someone for the BC Lions has to stand up and say, guys, we've lost a lot of games in the second half. Let's not do it again. Be aware of the fact that they're not winning in the second half. Confront that issue.
Yeah, both these teams are coming off some pretty ugly losses. And I look at this situation. Brian Clark, he's not in the lineup for the first time in 111 games. That dates back to 2000. You go back 2005, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a lot of games. He's being replaced by a Texas A&M product by the name of Cornelius Anthony. Hey, they love him in the Calgary Stampeder organization. He's a second-year player, hasn't got a lot of playing time because he's got some studs in front of him. But I'm going to tell you, this team collectively, as a defense, needs to make up for the big gap that's going to be voided, because Brian Clark calls their own defensive plays, and he gives everybody else a heads up more time than he's like the coach on the field. They've got 9 linebackers dressed in uniform tonight. That tells me they're going to miss Brian Clark.
Well, the BC Lions may or may not miss Antonio Warren, a coaching decision by Wally Buono. He left the veteran running back at home, and it's Joe Smith out of where, Matt? Louisiana Tech. Hey, he's going to be toting the rock for the Lions tonight.
The CFL on TSN is brought to you by Wendy's, the official hamburger of the CFL. Do Wendy's, do what tastes right. By Rona, proud league-wide sponsor of the CFL. And by Rogers Wireless. Rogers brings you 2006 FIFA World Cup video highlights on the latest MP3 phones.
Shelley Harcott of Calgary, you could win a 50-inch Prima Plasma TV if a kickoff is returned for a touchdown in tonight's game, thanks to Safeway's Touchdown and Win promotion. If a second kickoff is taken back, you could win $1 million. Let's take it back to Calgary for the game. Here are Chris Cuthbert and Glenn Suter.
Thank you, David. Yet another pivotal Western clash at McMahon Stadium tonight. The 2-3 BC Lions meet the 3-2 Calgary Stampeders. It is a great night here in the foothills, and they're expecting a big walk-up with the temperature at 29 degrees. Wind shouldn't be a big factor here. Well, it's a puzzling 2-3 record for Wally Buono's Lions, but since he moved from Calgary to BC, his team is 6-1 against Calgary. And on the other sidelines, Tom Higgins, the 2005 Coach of the Year, didn't like his team at all last week in a loss against Hamilton, but feels his team's a few plays away from being a 5-0 club this year.
Well, expectations high for the Calgary Stampeders. There was talk of the Grey Cup parade early on before the season even kicked off. So the high expectations are not quite met yet for Calgary. Both teams coming off the loss. Both teams will play with urgency tonight.
There's J.R. Ruffin, who is back to accept the opening kickoff of this game, along with Marcus Howell. And here we go. An all-West clash. The Lions 1-3 within the division. And it is Ruffin. Popped over the 30-yard line to the 35, and that's where the Calgary Stampeders will start on offense, led by their quarterback, Henry Burris.
And the #1 running back in the Canadian Football League, Joffrey Reynolds, number 21, behind Henry Burris. Look for the Calgary Stampeders to go to him early and often. Nick Lewis and Jermaine Copeland, the two top receivers for the Calgary Stampeders in the slot back spots. Offensive line with John Comiskey still playing center for Godfrey Ellis.
First play of the game, and they go right to the top running back of the CFL. And good performance by the Lions defense on the opening play as they try and swarm Joffrey Reynolds.
The pressure will be on that defense, especially the front four when it comes to stopping the run. The team ranks 6th right now with about 120 yards a game against the run. Javier Glatt key to that in the middle. He'll be in that one-on-one matchup with Joffrey Reynolds pretty much all night long. Baron Miles, off to a tremendous start at the safety spot. 4 interceptions, leads the Canadian Football League for Miles. Washington is Buddy on the right.
Starting lineup brought to you by Tums. Tums tackles Hartford fast. Drop play, Reynolds once again, and nothing doing for the second straight play as the big defensive tackle Tyrone Williams brings him down at the line of scrimmage.
Well, a lot of talk about Joffrey Reynolds coming into this one. You know, the BC Lions were listening. They come out in the very first series and are key to stop number 21, Joffrey Reynolds, with a 7.5-yard average. Defenses start to notice.
You know, they appeared to get away from Reynolds in the second half of the loss in Hamilton last week, so went right to him on the opening series, but with no success. So Bert Dales, who had that short punt late in the game against Hamilton, gets away a beauty, driving Aaron Lockett back inside his 20. And he is met and taken down hard by Wes Cates, who's been terrific on special teams for Calgary. That's his 7th special team tackle after a 50-yard Dales punt. And here is Dave Dickinson, who was rocked a week ago, and then the 2 late interceptions against Saskatchewan.
And the big change in the backfield, well, you heard it in the pregame show, Antonio Warren, a healthy scratch. Joe Smith will run the ball. G. Simon, leading receiver in that core. Angus Reid, the center. An offensive line that's probably led by Rob Murphy at left tackle.
What was that school Joe Smith went to? That's Dunnigan's alma mater, Louisiana Tech. And Dave Dickinson to Paris Jackson. And he just got it off, but he hooks up with Jackson, who had a terrific game last week against Saskatchewan, a career best 125 yards.
Well, you know one thing, Dave Dickinson will be on a mission in this game here this evening in Calgary. Number 1, Dickinson always plays well in Calgary. Inside guy right there is Paris Jackson. Number 2, he's coming off a game that was uncharacteristic for Dave Dickinson, a couple late mistakes against Saskatchewan, and he is fired up to have a big game tonight.
31 yards, the connection. And now the hitch screen, TJ Acree down to the Calgary 48-yard line.
You know, it was an article in the newspaper coming into this game that here in Calgary, it's because Dave Dickinson plays so well here in Calgary. Of course, he has an off-season home here, and he loves to play against the Calgary Stampeders. And they said the only thing worse than Dave Dickinson coming into Calgary for the Calgary defense is Dave Dickinson coming in on a mission, right, against the Calgary defense, and he's on a mission tonight.
Twice last year, 400 yards, 402 and 463 in 2 line wins over the Stampeders last season. 2nd and 5, and the out is complete to G. Simon, who makes his 35th catch of the year and came into this game as the number 3 receiver in receiving yards.
Well, you know, I keep asking teams how they are going to play Geroy Simon. Of course, they're trying not to give away too many secrets, but for the most part, teams are saying early on we're going to see if we can play him one-on-one. That often changes when it comes to Geroy Simon and turns into double teams in the second half.
These are two front-running teams. Both BC and Calgary have been very good in the first half of games this year. Here's Joe Smith. And Smith down to the 37-yard line. This is his second game. Played against Saskatchewan in the opener as we set the Calgary defense for you.
Demetrius Maxey, Raheem Abdullah up front in that 30 defense with 4 linebackers. The change will be Cornelius Anthony in the linebacking core for an injured Brian Clark, who says he may be back in 1 week. Tony Tiller has earned the starting halfback job in the secondary and has been starting in his second game.
The former Lion, Tony Tiller, who was released by BC a month ago. 2nd and 5. Snap show blitz. Dickinson gets it away quickly. Flag down. And Acree incomplete, the intended receiver. And let's sort out the flag with John Island in charge tonight. And the Stamps jump quickly. And Dave Dickinson's going to get another shot here.
Well,
offside. Calgary number 91. 5-yard penalty. Repeat, 2nd down.
Demetrius Maxey, the guilty party.
there is Cornelius Anthony, who moves into that linebacking spot for Brian Clark, who played over 100 games consecutive. Brian Clark will still be a very important part of this defense. He'll be helping to call the plays and keep Cornelius Anthony, make sure he's on the right page when he calls.
2nd and inches, Sejarius Jackson comes in, and he'll plunge ahead and move the sticks.
Here's how it's going to work. Basically, by position, Brian Clark is the leader in that huddle, and he calls the defenses in the huddle. With him on the sideline now, he's worked close with Cornelius Anthony because they didn't change the responsibilities. In other words, they're not going to give it to John Grace or Scott Coe. Cornelius Anthony is responsible for picking the signals as you watch him now from the sideline, looking at his card on his wrist, and then calling him in the huddle. Lots of responsibility in his first start.
First down, Dickinson back in. The screen was all busted up. It looked like Joe Smith was the intended receiver, but he got caught up in the wash.
Well, there has been talk that Antonio Warren is a healthy scratch in this game because of one missed block against Saskatchewan, and then of course that is not true, and not one coach ever will bench a player because of one play in one game. Obviously, this is a series of things that has caused Wally Buono to take a look at Joe Smith.
2nd and 10. Dickinson underneath, and there's Jackson across her, but brought down quickly. Great play by Jermaine Chapman, the defensive halfback, to limit Jackson's progress.
So we'll get a good look at Joe Smith. He only touched the ball a couple of times in that series. Lions will come out with a field goal team, but according to the book on Joe Smith, is he's a lot like Joffrey Reynolds. In fact, talking to most of the coaches, they're making that not the comparison in production because we don't know yet, but just in physical body size, how he runs, a north-south runner. He's got a lot of weight, good protection guy, can block for the quarterback. So we'll get a good look at Mr. Joe Smith here tonight.
Maybe not the receiving talents of Antonio Warren. Here's Paul McCallum. The Lions' kicking game has been very effective in the early going this year, and McCallum continues that trend as he drills a 38-yarder. Paul McCallum and the Lions strike first. BC Lions have won 3 of 4 visits with Wally Buono as the head coach here at McMahon Stadium, and have the lead after 6 minutes of play on the 38-yard Paul McCallum field goal.
But a very important game for the BC Lions when you consider their last 13 dating back to last year. They've won just 3 of them. And this is a team that concerns are starting to grow in Vancouver, without question. And people are starting to question some of the decisions and some of what they've seen on the field.
Brett Anderson kicks it off. And J.R. Ruffin. Calgary opting for the return. And Ruffin gets it to the 40, so they get 5 extra yards on the kickoff. As Henry Burris comes out for his second series, did not throw a pass in the opening series of the game, and there are the numbers from last week in Hamilton that were really not Henry Burris-like.
Not really. The one thing about Henry Burris in the first couple of games, he was still a little sloppy with the football, throwing in 2 games, 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Then in the last 3, he's changed that. 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's better. But you're right, a bit of an average game against the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
This time they fake it to Reynolds. And a pass in the flat to Wes Keats. Keats with the catch, but quickly brought down by Mark Washington.
You know, but really the book on the Calgary Stampeders offense this year is that they do pretty well moving the football between the 30s and have had problems putting it in the end zone. Burris said in the newspaper this week, basically, that it seems that our offense changes a little, and that may be just a mental attitude when they get down into the scoring zone, or maybe they're actually changing some plays. The bottom line is that's where they want to finish. They want to finish stronger this year in this game in the scoring zone.
Double tight end, 2nd and 2, the option toss. Here's Reynolds. He gets outside, finds a crease, and Joffrey Reynolds met by Barron Miles at the BC 45-yard line. And that's the guy who came into this week leading the CFL in rushing, and he just clicked over 500 yards on the season.
And this is a great example of why. I mean, first of all, look at the strength that Joffrey Reynolds has. I mean, he's a strong back, but watch the cut on a dime right here. Little cut to the outside, and with that acceleration, outruns the tackler's angle. And I talked to Steve Barato about this guy. He said, you know, personality-wise, works very hard, very quiet. Joffrey Reynolds has never asked for the ball more. Not once.
17 for Reynolds, the fake to Reynolds, and somehow Burris eluded the rush and throws incomplete, trying to hook up with Kenyon Rambo. Ryan Phillips was blitzing, and Burris
and of course
eluded him.
Sorry, Chris. Of course, when you have Joffrey Reynolds right there in your screen, Joffrey Reynolds, watch how he influences the defense. I mean, Javier Glatt is in the hole, ready to stop Reynolds. That gives the outside to Henry Burris. They can't hook up on this pass, but that defense obviously very concerned with number 21, and should be. Steve Barato was the guy who told me, and he used to be the guy who would listen to a player come in and say, I'd like the ball more. Joffrey Reynolds has never asked him.
Get to another Barato comment momentarily. 2nd and 10. Burris steps up and looks downfield, wide open, Brett Ralph, and he can't get a foot down.
Baby.
Oh boy. He was forgotten about in the corner, and they miss an opportunity with an open receiver.
You know, and Henry Burris had time to settle his feet, and he didn't realize it. Burris right behind the goalpost. Watch, he bounces outside again. It's kind of up in the pocket. Now he's to the right. He's got lots of time to throw the football. Tries to throw it on the dead run and just leads Ralph to the outside, and he can't keep it in. So a chance for Burris to settle his feet, step in and throw a touchdown, and that'll be one at the end, Chris. He says, well, there's a couple I'd like back. That'll be one of them.
So, timeout on the field as the officials conferring with the BC Lions. Wally Buono doesn't like something he sees, and not sure if he's called a timeout here or not.
Wally Buono was a little intense.
Yeah,
in game day.
We both had a chance to talk to the coach, and we both know him well enough to know the game face was firmly on early today.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say combative, but feisty would be underselling his demeanor coming into this game.
Well, his team has not reached expectations. And I'm not talking about the fans' expectations. I'm talking about his expectations of this team.
He did say we played Calgary well. We are expecting to win, but enough talk. There's been a lot of talk about the Lions, and now it's a procedure call.
Yeah, Scott Coe stepped across the line deliberately, and I'm wondering if the Calgary Stampeders here saw something from the BC special teams that they didn't recognize. And
procedure. Calgary number 56, 5-yard penalty. It remains 3rd down.
And Wally is so intense tonight, he might want to officiate this game. He's got a flag on the sidelines. I don't.
He may have saw our game last night. I'm sure he did, and saw that there was lots of challenges. He's just ready.
We got enough flags. So 5 yards further back gives Dales a little more room for the coffin corner, but he blasts this one into the end zone anyway and right through. So it's a single point, a 70-yard single to get Calgary on the scoreboard. Lions go back to work on offense, their first series possession of the game. 8 plays, 53 yards, and the McCallum 38-yard field goal. Joe Smith on the pitch, and Smith finds room across the 45 and a first down run for Mr. Smith.
Well, that's very similar to the running style of a Joffrey Reynolds, as Joe Smith gets his shoulder pads low and drives those legs north-south. Once he decides what hole he wants to hit, he hits it right in there.
Wally Buono said we expect him to read the line, hit the crease, and maybe bounce a couple outside for 20 yards. That was for 10 and a first down. And now they swing it out, and here's G. Roy Simon stepping across midfield. Back-to-back first downs for the Lions.
Interesting when you look at this 34 defense, the linebackers often responsible for flying out there and stopping the run. So it'll be Scott Coe and company against Joe Smith. And I found it interesting when Scott Coe tried to Google Joe Smith to find out a little bit about him and get a little scouting report on him. And he said there's apparently a lot of Joe Smiths in the internet. He probably went through page after page of Joe Smiths trying to find little information on this particular Joe.
So many that apparently he had to show his girlfriend when he first met her ID to prove that really was his name. There's Ryan Thelwell with the catch, and close to another Lion first down as Dave Dickinson marching here down to the Calgary 43-yard line. Just going to say, Joe Smith has played in one other game. He had 3 carries, 1 yard, and Wally Buono told him after the game he wasn't happy with him. So he's had 3 or 4 weeks to sit and consider that performance and make sure it's better tonight.
The one thing about Wally Buono is he will let you know how he feels. Good, bad, or indifferent. He will tell you where you stand on the football team, and that's what he said to Joe Smith through a subpar performance.
9 for Thelwell, 2nd and 1. Jumbo team on for the Lions in short yardage. And Smith will crash for the first down, but plenty of flags on the play. Cornelius Anthony sticking his head in and making the stop.
You know, interesting, I've been watching early on here Dave Dickinson. I mean, he took a vicious hit last week, and sometimes hits like that.
Offside. Calgary number 92, 5-yard penalty, first down.
Sheldon Napastia
against Saskatchewan's Jackie Mitchell, and hits like that often have effect on a player beyond the rest of that game and into the next couple of weeks. And so far, I don't see really any ill effects of that hit in this game from Dave Dickinson just yet. He looks sharp.
Does he ever? 6 for 7 so far. A first down after the penalty and more movement along that line. Calgary jumped, or was this time were they drawn? And it gives us a chance to take another look at something Dave Dickinson doesn't want to see again.
Well, and again, this was Antonio Warren with a missed assignment, and that hits like that.
How is he not out with whiplash, among other things?
First of all, I mean, you see it again, and you just the hairs on your skin just stand on edge. I mean, the guy, those kind of hits knock you out for a season, and that he got up is amazing. That he's not showing any effects of it right now is illustrating the toughness of Dave Dickinson.
Another offside makes it 1st and 5, and here's Joe Smith bouncing off first contact and surging forward for another Lion first down. So Joe Smith making an impact as a running back for the Lions so far in this first quarter.
And he appears to be a style of running back that will wear defenders down, because he looks like he's delivering blows rather than receiving them at that low pad level.
20 yards in the opening quarter. He led NFL Europe last year, had 6 100-yard games. Dickinson. Bush with his first catch to the 24-yard line.
Yeah, I was going to mention about Chris Bush. He's got a chance to play a few games now with Tony Simmons out, and Simmons is gone. And Chris Bush has to start playing better. I mean, the entire supporting cast, with the exception of maybe Paris Jackson and a little bit of Ryan Thelwell, who's now coming back from that knee injury. Guys like Bush and TJ Ackrey have to start playing better with the attention that Geroy Simon draws.
Well, it's the process of developing trust between experienced quarterback and the new receivers. Dickinson hit, but he finds Jackson. Touchdown, Paris Jackson. And he's on his horse early here in Calgary.
Well, they're off to a good start again. Dave Dickinson was slow to get up after that hit. But a wide open Paris Jackson again. When you have Geroy Simon in the lineup and it's to the left of your screen, Simon's the inside receiver. He draws all the attention, pulls 2 defenders to him, and the Calgary Stampeders with the busting coverage leave Paris Jackson open. And I mentioned Paris Jackson, you mentioned coming off that great game in the loss, but he is taking another step in his development.
Absolutely, a touchdown last week, now another here. It's his 3rd of the season. Came into the game as the 6th-ranked receiver in the league. Another quick start for the BC Lions. 7 plays, 75 yards, and a 10-1 lead.
Paris Jackson with a big play down the sideline. You see Geroy Simon, the inside receiver. Watch how he draws so much attention. He's got 2 players jumping him, and that leaves Paris Jackson wide open in behind. A bust by the Calgary secondary. And the Lions take advantage. If you make a mistake in the secondary, Dave Dickinson will find it.
Kickoff goes to J.R. Ruffin. And Ruffin across the 40-yard line.
Dave Dickinson was a little bit slow getting up after throwing that touchdown pass to Paris Jackson. We'll see him. He takes a bit of a hit right under the left arm, and he took a look to see, but he kind of held his right arm up around his shoulder pad too, getting a little attention on that sideline. And keep our eye on him.
Trey Young, the safety, with the hit on Dickinson. So a 9-point deficit for the hometown Stampeders. Henry Burris trying to get things going. Brent Johnson in pursuit. Burris looking downfield. Jump ball, and Ralph stretching out, can't haul it in. Ralph with only 4 catches on the year, and 3 came in week 1.
You know, Brett Ralph played this perfectly at the end of the play because he slowed down his route. He goes down the sideline, basically puts the brakes on, and then takes off after the fact on LeVar Glover. Had a chance, had both hands on the football, and just doesn't come up with it.
2nd and 10 at the Calgary 41.
Is it just me, or does Henry look like he's looking deep all the time? It hasn't been much intermediate so far, and a slow start for these Stamps, looking at 2nd and 10. And pressure underneath Nick Lewis. Oh, 1 tackle, but is hauled down from behind by not Mikhail Osher.
Well, Nick Lewis will see a whole bunch of Corey Banks from the BC Lions, it looks like. I watched the first couple of series, and it looks like BC is trying to line up Nick Lewis and Corey Banks one-on-one. Nick Lewis has the under. This is a zone defense, so you won't see man-to-man there, but look for that matchup between Corey Banks and Nick Lewis throughout this game, and that will mean Mark Washington will be over on Jermaine Copeland. I feel that Corey Banks may be able to get up and be physical with the receiver, and Nick Lewis, who also likes to play the game at a high physical level.
Banks with 2 interceptions against Calgary last year, and a touchdown and an interception for a touchdown in the preseason here at McMahon Stadium. So that's a good matchup. Markeith Knowlton of the Lions shaken up on the last play. and he is getting attention.
I don't disagree with you, though, on the fact that Henry Burris, Chris, is going deep. He's rolled out a couple times to his right and just thrown it up in man-to-man coverage, and not necessarily a bad idea. Yes, you'd like to see him move the football in increments a little bit more and probably be a little more ball control, but it does plant a seed, and the seed is on the defensive backs for the Lions that we're going to go deep. So get in your back pedal and turn and run.
Markeith Knowlton heading to the sidelines. Birkdale's called upon for the 3rd time here in the opening quarter to punt the ball away. Aaron Lockett is back, and he's given you some hints that maybe tonight's the night.
We've been talking about this for 3 weeks now.
Well, oh, baby, it's a good start. Up across the 35 to the 37. Well, the way things have gone, that's a good punt return. The BC Lions go back to work on offense. 3 points last week in the second half against Saskatchewan. They have 10 already in this opening quarter tonight, and another completion to Ryan Thelwell, who is hitting his stride after a slow start with a sprained knee in the preseason.
Well, the last 2 games for Ryan Thelwell, he really hasn't shown any ill effects of that knee injury, so it looks like he's back. And with Jason Claremont and Tony Simmons out, very important for Dave Dickinson.
You made a good point to me earlier today. You got Thelwell and Jason Claremont, 2 terrific Canadian receivers, but Claremont hurt right now. Thelwell just hitting stride. And Paris Jackson, who has the touchdown catch for the BC Lions, maybe the best Canadian receiver right now in the CFL.
Well, you know, Ben Cahoon is considered Canadian, so there's one.
After Ben.
And after Ben, Paris Jackson would probably be my pick.
Joe Smith crashing for a 1st down.
You know, Paris Jackson with Ryan Thelwell, and that's a nice luxury for Wally Buono to have that kind of depth at Canadian receiver. You know, and you knew Paris Jackson, he's a physical specimen, the North Van native, and here's a guy who, you watch him play basketball, he can dunk a basketball in a stride. And he's one of those guys that can do the acrobatic dunks too, from behind their back and all of that. And you knew athletically he was going to emerge as a great receiver.
Should be the last play of the opening quarter.
I was trying to.
Dickinson throws that as his old offensive lineman Jay McNeil at the Calgary bench. Just wanted to make sure no mistakes were made on the final play of a good first quarter for Dickinson and the Lions. First quarter stats are brought to you by Rona, proud league-wide sponsor of the CFL.
Well, lopsided first quarter for the BC Lions. 9 first downs to 1 for the Calgary Stampeders. Henry Burris has tried to go deep 3 or 4 times unsuccessfully, and they've been 2 and out because of it.
So what's the old adage? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. We're used to the Lions starting like this.
Well, we sure are, and their problems have been in the second half, both offensively and defensively. They've been fast starting team. They are again tonight.
Well, let's see if they can keep this rolling as Dave Dickinson looks at 2nd and 10 to start the second quarter. Dickinson saying we're much better than our record. And with a couple of plays here and there, this team could be talking about a 5-0 start. Instead, they're below 500, and Dave Dickinson hits the deck for the first time tonight. Terrence Patrick gets to the quarterback for Calgary's first sack.
Yeah, and I thought Demetrius Maxey gets the assist. He looked like he came around the edge and was in pursuit of Dave Dickinson, who had to step up, and Terrence Patrick was there. Got pressure from the outside. The Calgary Stampeders in a one move right out here. And that's Jason Jimenez, who's played pretty well at the right tackle. You can see there's where Dave Dickinson has to step up in the pocket. He doesn't like that pressure from the right end. Terrence Patrick is right there to greet him.
Second sack for Patrick, and the 13th for the Stampeders on the year. Here's Cates, met at the 35-yard line. Ricky Foley, one of the first men downfield as we join Jermaine Franklin.
Hey guys, well, looking at all the talent on the Stamps offense, it's easy to see why they lead the league in yards gained. However, when it comes to scoring touchdowns, it's a totally different story. Henry Burris and the gang settle for field goals at an alarming rate when they're in the red zone. And when you take away the 53 points scored against Saskatchewan, they average under 20 points per game in the remaining 4 games. However, I'm sure they'd like to get to that red zone tonight in the second quarter.
Well, what's disturbing right now, Jermaine, is they aren't even moving it into the red zone. Just 31 net yards first quarter for the Stamps. Play action. And outside it goes, and here's Rambo with the spin. Kenyon Rambo up to the 49.
It all starts with Joffrey Reynolds, and it'll always be focused on Joffrey Reynolds. Once again, Calgary Stampeders offensively, little play action to Joffrey Reynolds. Always trying to keep the BC Lion defense a little bit off balance. A missed tackle by Dante Marsh. A good move there in the open field by Kenyon Rambo.
Gain of 14. And now back into the flat. It's a completion to Nick Lewis, who shakes a tackle. And Nick Lewis all the way down to the BC 37.
Nick Lewis, another one of those players that's so strong, very strong upper body and leg strength. And in order to bring Nick Lewis down, you're going to have to wrap him up, get more than one hat on him. In other words, gang tackle. And one-on-one in the open field, Nick Lewis often breaks that first one. That one, Corey Banks, and that's the matchup I talked about.
And you don't usually see Corey Banks miss a tackle like that. It results in a 24-yard gain. Burris has to scoop up the ball off the carpet and then throw a strike to Jermaine Copeland, who's been saying in the last week, call my number. Just 2 catches in Hamilton for 26 yards for the usually explosive Jermaine Franklin.
Well,
Jermaine Copeland.
Yeah, well, you never know. Jermaine Franklin could play receive. He's explosive. But you know what, Copeland, you know, you mentioned he talked about wanting the ball more. And it's interesting because I talked to Steve Barato, the offensive coordinator, about that. And about players coming up to him and asking for the football. He had an interesting answer.
Copeland 4th in the league in receiving. 14 there. And now a pass to the near side out of the reach of Elijah Thurman, who also had a quiet game in Hamilton with just 1 catch.
You know, you've got all the weapons that Steve Barato has at his disposal with Jermaine Copeland, Nick Lewis, and now Elijah Thurman. And oftentimes one of those guys will come in and ask Steve Barato for the ball. And they'll say, I'd like to see the ball more, like Jermaine Copeland did. And you know what Barato's answer to that is, and I love it. Don't tell me you want the ball more. Tell me how you want me to get you the ball.
That's good. We'll see if Copeland has given him the right recipe tonight. Burris had time, but a flag's down into the end zone. Copeland, what a catch! But is it going to stand? It may be coming back. And it is. Well, he told Henry Burris how, but unfortunately, there's a hold that will negate the score.
When a player has to tell the coach how, in other words, what play against this particular defensive style, that makes him responsible. That's why I loved Steve Barato's answer.
Calgary number 64. 10-yard penalty. Repeat second down.
Jeff Peel on the right tackle, the guilty party.
There's Pelon right there. And he's working on Brent Johnson. Johnson getting a great bull rush, and you could see him with the arms and hands outside on the shoulder pads. But again, this is a good call if Jermaine Copeland went into Steve Barato and said, okay, I don't just want the ball, but I have a route that I might be able to get open against this defense. He was open, made the catch, so he did know how, although it won't count.
Copeland's gone 4 games without a touchdown. His lone major was in week 1 here against Edmonton. Second down over. 18 to go. Burris loads it up, another flag down. Thurman drops it in the end zone. Elijah Thurman with a drop. And the flag's dropped as well.
And I don't know if Mark Washington touched that football, but he definitely distracted Elijah Thurman back there in the end zone.
Still awaiting the call. And it's going against BC.
Major foul, unnecessary roughness, BC, 15-yard penalty, automatic, first down.
Well, we don't get the guilty party, but the Stampeders get a fresh set of downs. And the Thurman drop cost Calgary a touchdown.
We'll take a look here if we can pick up some rough play or contact. Kenyon Rambo across the middle there looked like he got a little shot to the chops.
First down, Joffrey Reynolds fights over. What a move! Down to the 6-yard line.
Oh, I love it. What a move by Joffrey Reynolds in the second layer. I believe it was Mark Washington, who is one of the most sure tacklers for the BC Lions in their entire defense. In fact, he's 21 tackles, #2 on the team. And what a shake and bake in the open field by Joffrey Reynolds. Change of direction off the left of your screen. First of all, good acceleration there. Now watch this move. Little free step, almost a dead leg, and then back into the middle. That's a nice move in the open field.
12 for Reynolds. Another Calgary first down. Already 3 100-yard games on the season. First and goal from the 6. Reynolds time, kicks it outside. Can he turn the corner? Power just to get 2 or 3 when it looked like he might have been stopped for a loss.
Great stiff arm move there. I mean, we've seen a little bit of foot speed. We've seen some power. How about the upper body strength? Here's an addition. Here's a look at some upper body strength, and it's going to come right at you. Now, you're the tackler, and you're taking off that pad level. Now, watch the left arm from Joffrey Reynolds. Right there.
Yeah, he gave Mark Washington the Heisman.
So a good move on Washington early, and then that big stiff arm. That's the old-fashioned one. They used to pose for that for the pitcher, you know, that Heisman move.
And they marked it at the 2, so a 4-yard gain. And it looked like he could have been stopped for a loss. Second and goal. This time, working outside, and Rambo coming around, and he'll be stopped for a loss. Check that, Cates, 25.
Obviously, Steve Barato trying to run a little change of direction to try and fool the BC defense, but 2 solid runs by Joffrey Reynolds, and now they use him as a decoy up the middle. The Lions had slid to that side and filled those gaps anyway and rallied to the football. Dante Marsh with a good open field tackle. But again, red zone problems for the Calgary Stampeders on the doorstep and can't close.
Lack of finish, 10-play drive. They take it 72 yards, but we'll have to settle for this DeAngelis chip shot. Had his streak of 16 straight end in Hamilton, but he's been just about perfect this year. His 20th field goal in 22 attempts.
Closed captioning of the CFL on TSN is brought to you by Castrol. It's not just motor oil, it's liquid engineering.
Crowd of over 30,000 expected tonight at McMahon Stadium. Hoping the Stamps can up their record to 4-2 and get a little breathing room in the airtight CFL West.
Let it go, let it go, let it
Angeles
go!
puts
let
it on
it
the
go.
ground, and you can hear the instructions from the bench. Heeded by Dante Marsh, who lets it roll out of bounds, and BC will get possession at their 45-yard line.
Well, the BC Lions are used to this kind of start this season. They have been very good out of the gate on offense, 105 points. Points allowed on defense, 39. Things change in the second half. If you're a BC Lion fan, you put the X's over there, and it affects Dave Dickinson and his completion percentage. And both offensively, defensively, and on the special teams, they have to be better in the second half, being outscored in the second half, 90-44.
And look at those numbers early on. for a very efficient Dave Dickinson so far. First down, he overthrows T.J. Acree on that look in.
Well, Dave Dickinson keeps it up, and they keep Dave Dickinson on his feet. He will end up this season at this pace over 5,000 yards and close to 70% in that completion percentage department with 43 touchdowns. That would be impressive numbers. You got to keep him on his feet.
Well, he has thrown 4 interceptions on the year, all against Saskatchewan. He threw just 5 picks all of last season. 2nd and 10. And that slant pattern complete to Ryan Thelwell, who's closing in now on 300 career catches. Came into the game with 295. And for number 3, it is his 3rd catch.
Sorry, Chris, maybe close enough here. Wally Buono, well, I think he's going to actually send the punt team in. I thought it might be close enough to first down territory for him to maybe gamble, but at this point in the game, we're going to see the kicking team. Now, with what we've seen over the last little while, including yesterday in Edmonton, because the kicking team's out there doesn't mean it's not an offensive play.
Heads up play by the Bombers yesterday on the onside field goal. Don Matthews executing the onside punt last week in Winnipeg. Flag down as McCallum has that bounce into the end zone. And with Otis Floyd in the no yards area, the ball is down by Kenyon Rambo.
What's up, everybody? This is Henry Burris of the Calgary Stampeders, and you're watching CFL Friday Night Football on TSN, Canada's sports leader.
And Smiling Hank got things going on his last possession, 10 plays, 72 yards, and the field goal. They've just sorted out 3 different penalties on that last punt. Henry may not want to come out because they're going to take possession, it would appear, inside the 5.
Well, where they start changes the strategy for Henry Burris and Steve Barato, who are talking together on the sideline. Tom Higgins trying to get it sorted out. There was 1 flag at the line of scrimmage, 1 flag that shouldn't have been thrown for the no yards in the end zone. That was just a common sense thing. Even if Otis Floyd was a little bit close, there was no way that the Stampeders were going anywhere. He was bouncing backwards.
There was 1 holding penalty against Calgary. Did not pick up the other, but it remains 10-4 BC. And the Stamps will take it at their 5-yard line. You know, one of the keys for this offense has been the way Joffrey Reynolds has taken pressure off Henry Burris with his running success, and that was evident again on that last drive by Calgary.
And that's why they use him so much in play action.
So they start deep. And they start with Joffrey Reynolds. And he lunges ahead for close to 7.
You know, with a guy that big, and in Joffrey Reynolds, you're talking about 220 pounds plus. At his good foot movement. I mean, the guy, when he makes a break, is always moving forward, even though it's a lateral cut, if that makes sense. So if he moves from left to right at all, it's in an angle so that his momentum is still taking him forward in the hole. That's why he's so difficult to bring down.
2nd and 3. Burris over the middle and a completion to Rambo. First down at the 29-yard line. Dante Marsh with the tackle.
That's called a hot route to Kenyon Rambo. He's just going to be wide open to the left of your screen here and just come right down. And this is just the recognition of Henry Burris at the line of scrimmage to see him as an open receiver, no one on him. They dropped into the zone and left the pocket there for Kenyon Rambo. No matter what the play call, Rambo will go to that spot if he's not covered up at the line of scrimmage.
17 for Rambo. Calgary, a little breathing room. Back to Reynolds. You know, you talked about the quick feet, and people around Calgary were saying his feet just seemed quicker right from the opening day of training camp. He had a terrific off-season, sparked in large part because he really took it on his own that there were a couple of Joffrey Reynolds fumbles in last year's Western semifinal.
Yeah, and he worked on that in the offseason, just controlling the football. More on that as this drive continues.
2nd and 1 after the 9-yard Reynolds pick up in the draw. Gets the first down up to the 40-yard line. Next Friday, it's a Wendy's CFL on TSN Friday Night Football doubleheader, beginning with the 4-2 Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Hamilton at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, followed by Montreal taking on the Eskimos in Edmonton. Both games also available TSN HD. What kind of Eskimo team do we see next week after that?
Reeling right now, you got to believe, and probably some questions in the direction of Rick Campbell, the defensive coordinator.
And after last week, they get the perfect Montreal Alouettes. Burris, too high for Copeland, and it looked like Burris had crossed the line of scrimmage as the flag is tossed.
Burris is struggling right now throwing on the run. Remember early in the game, he had a wide open Brett Ralph for a touchdown, was on the dead fly to his right, and rolling to his right should be more comfortable for the quarterback. Rolling to your left, often tougher to throw on the run, but he's about, first of all, he's 4 yards over the line of scrimmage, so didn't recognize that. But second of all, just looks like he's struggling a little bit with his timing and his accuracy when he's trying to throw on the move.
We have an illegal forward pass. Calgary number 1. That penalty is declined. 2nd down.
So 2nd and 10. Mention how Reynolds often takes pressure off Henry, but he also takes it off himself by running the football. He's been effective in that department this year. He's the 6th leading rusher with over 200 yards, but haven't really seen it yet tonight. He seemed reluctant on that last play to pull it down himself. What does he call on 2nd and 10? Has an open man, has Nick Lewis, has a first down at the Stamps 51.
Well, right now, you're right. He's been running to run rather than running to throw. There's Nick Lewis, and he's just going to come down and just curl up right at the first down marker. Knows exactly where that first down marker is and make sure he's at least a yard beyond it for the first down. But Burrs has run more in past games.
Nick Lewis has 3 catches in his first half. 6 receivers out. Burris rolls, Brett Ralph. And this time Brett Ralph does get a foot down as he had to stretch out for that. Burris offering.
Another example though, Chris, of Burris having the opportunity outside to take off and run and probably pick up at least as many yards as Brett Ralph did on the sideline, and he elects to throw. So right now, he is looking to throw the football as he runs out of the pocket. He's got outside of contain a bunch, and every time he's released it.
But you can feel the momentum of this offense starting to be established. They trail by 6, but they're on the move. Another first down, Stamps. Another 6-pack. Oh, what a read. Corey Banks read the mail and broke up. Pass intended.
Players hate, they don't hate, but players would prefer not to watch the hours and hours of film that they have to watch to get to this level. But this is why film study is so important, because that was straight recognition from Corey Banks. He didn't look at receiver. He pattern read, and he saw, based on the formation and where everyone moved at the snap, he knew exactly where the ball was going to be thrown.
Almost a catch and a forced fumble, but ruled incomplete. Under 4 minutes to go, first half. Nick Lewis over the middle, another catch. And tries to stretch out for the first down. Corey Banks with the tackle. It's been a real good matchup in this first half.
Well, Corey Banks is going to play off and try and, in some ways, disguise the coverage on Nick Lewis here, but he's too far off. You can see him at about 10 yards, and he's just going to settle his feet and then try and break on the football. Nick Lewis using his body to keep Corey Banks away from the ball.
And this will require a measurement and give Tom Higgins a chance to consider his options.
We saw it a bunch last night, though, Chris. When a receiver runs a lot of those curl and crossing routes, what's the next progression? The next progression is a curl and go, straight wheel route to get deep. Chris Brazel did it last night. We saw Jason Tucker do it last night, a little Ed Hervey, and I'm starting to get that feeling that Nick Lewis is maybe a player or two away from taking Corey Banks deep.
And we'll see if that's set up.
Likely not on 3rd and inches, but possibly in this drive, but you never know.
I think there's a few inches there.
It is
This is almost a full yard for Henry Burris. Trying to force it ahead, and a good lunge on second effort by Burris to get the first down, but the flag is tossed.
As they inch closer to that scoring zone. 0 for 1 in there in this game. You remember the movie Glengarry Glen Ross?
You're going to have to help me with this one,
Well,
too.
there was a speech at the beginning.
Offside. BC number 96. 5-yard penalty. First down.
Apparently Tyrone Williams doesn't agree with the call.
It was a movie about sales, basically, and the top guy had a gold watch, and he said, you know why I have the gold watch? Because I can close. You don't close the first time, it's okay. The second time, you're gone. The Calgary Stampeders have to close.
Lions may want to rent that movie too. First down after the offside. Corey Banks got his hand on that and nearly had his first BC Lion interception. The 3-minute warning given to the benches here. First half at McMahon. 10-4, Lions lead coming up at halftime. We'll let the panel weigh in on what they've seen on this first half of football. It's been a tale of 2 quarters. Stamps really didn't get anything done in the first quarter, but now have established 144 yards of offense in the second quarter. Still looking for their first major score of the game. 2nd and 10, Burris. Rambo with the catch. And did he drop the ball? Rambo lunging forward, trying to get an extra yard or two, and he puts it down and comes up on the limp, and the BC Lions have the football. It is BC football. So another promising Stampeder drive comes up short. Carl Kidd comes up with the fumble recovery as Kenyon Rambo stretched out for an extra yard and lost the ball, but the Calgary Stampeders are challenging the ruling on the field.
Taking a couple of looks at it during the break, and Baron Miles comes up and spins Rambo around. He's not down by contact yet. He's not yet. And the ball comes out of his hands before he hits the ground in his shoulder pads. Now the question is, did that knee touch?
There's that old adage, the ground can't make you fumble, but it can if you're not down by contact, and I guess that's the issue. The ball is coming out right there. And
now would the fact that Baron Miles is on the ground and Rambo's knee is on top of Baron Miles play into it? As they twist around there, and the officials will look at this one. Tom Higgins threw the flag just as we were going to break.
He had something going, 13 plays. They'd driven the football 83 yards. And now apparently have lost possession unless they win this challenge.
Well, it looks to us to be a fumble, but it's a good challenge in a way that the first one doesn't cost you a timeout. The first half is coming to an end anyway, and you're right. You talked about his great drive, and you hate to see that drive end up with a big donut. So not a bad challenge for Tom Higgins to go ahead and try it.
Maybe an indication of how confident he is. The Calgary defense is on the field. Let's take another look. Did a knee touch or not? That spin move kept him up, and the ball was coming out even before.
Curious as to why the official is taking as much time as he is on this one. It looks like it's clearly a fumble, but I'm wondering about Baron Miles being on the ground.
Only the Calgary player's feet touched the playing surface prior to the fumble. Therefore, it is a fumble. The ruling on the play stands. BC first down.
Yeah, well, it didn't matter. It took a long time to come to that decision. And we could see clearly that the ball came out before Rambo's knee touched the ground or his hand, his left hand. And remember, your hand doesn't count. I mean, you can touch the ground with your hand and keep running. Your knee or any other part of your body touches, you're down.
So the BC Lions defense comes up with the first takeaway of the night. And has the ball with 2:43 to go at their own 22-yard line. Joe Smith straight ahead, a north-south runner crashing to the 32. Now, what's a big guy like that at BC Lions training camp walking around with an umbrella?
I didn't. Joe Smith had an
Apparently,
umbrella.
it took a little adjustment to the BC weather early for Joe.
Well, it rains a little bit out there, apparently.
Smith with 9 on that carry, improving his numbers in this first half. Jarius Jackson in to get the first down.
Well, I ran into G. Roy Simon in the hallway before the game as they were going out for warm-up, and G. Roy Simon has been listening closely to our debate over the top receivers, and I think we may both defer to Milt Stiegel when it's all said and done, the way he played in that 100-yarder at the end of the game. But our debate over Jason Tucker and G. Roy Simon has made its way to Simon's living room. He said to me, tell your buddy CC, tell your buddy Chris Cuthberg up there that how many times Jason Tucker get double teamed?
Yeah. No, we're a big fan of G. Roy's too. There's a pass picked off. Did he get a foot in? Yes, Calgary football. On the interception by the former Lion, Tony Tiller.
Tremendous range of motion for Tony Tiller, who drops back in a deep zone. Tony Tiller is going to end up being basically a deep defender, reads the quarterback, breaks on the football. He opens his hips nicely. And how about the focus and concentration to get 1 foot in bounds? It's the left foot, clearly in bounds. In fact, he's almost a half a yard away. You can see the left foot touch. He has control. Big play by the Calgary Stampeders, Tony Tiller.
Such an athletic play. He might have got the right foot in too. What a terrific interception.
His second.
His second of the year after being released by the BC Lions. So sweet moment for Tony Tiller, who not only came in as the extra DB in Calgary as a pickup, but now has earned his way into the starting lineup. And is Wally Buono challenging?
Well, he got in last week.
BC has challenged the ruling on the field, which was that Calgary intercepted the pass inbounds.
Now
we will review it.
We did watch the feet clearly in bounds. Now maybe we better just check again to see if clearly he had control of the football, because apparently the Lions spotters think this is worthy of a challenge.
There he is right there, so follow him all the way. Again, a great break on the football. Now, looks to me like he catches it there, he has it up around his shoulder. Looks like he's tucked it in right now. The left foot touches. It's under his right arm, the football. You can just see it. Yeah, that's a catch. I don't think they'll get it. I don't think they'll need another angle for that one.
And it's the 15th takeaway of the season by the Stampeder defense, and that's number 1 in the CFL.
Well, yeah, but the one thing they didn't have was a lot of interceptions. Tony Tiller had 1 of 3 for this football team. They did have the takeaways, but not in the interception department. Tom Higgins on the right wanted to see more. Tony Tiller got some time to play for Ruffin and had an interception in that game, and that's why he earns the starting job. He also has a sack on the season.
Calgary actually came in tied for first in the takeaway department with the Montreal Alouettes.
Interesting how coaches, Chris, are getting more familiar with the replay system and are actually utilizing it more. I mean, they're taking that first basically free challenge, even though it looks clearly that it's not.
The Calgary defender clearly had 1 foot in bounds and maintained complete control of the ball all the way to the ground. The catch stands as an interception. First down, Calgary.
Basically, there's been a lot of challenges of late on that first one, even though it's pretty obvious that the play was...
I'm not sure why, though, because you only get 2, and I know the first one doesn't cost you a timeout, but you may want one for later on just in case. That one burned. And Henry Burris back to work, and whoa! Mark Washington read the mail and almost had one going back the other way.
Great break by Mark Washington. I mentioned his sure tackling in the open field for the BC Lions this season. He's going to break on this football. He's always the inside halfback here, and watch how he makes that break underneath in the zone. A little bit of contact on the wide receiver, and Mark Washington's wife Judy is expecting, and she's back in BC, and she is ready to go. And so there's been a phone line on the side there. Cato, the equipment guy, is ready to let him know if there's any news.
2nd and 10. Lewis has a first down catch at the 42, and Geronimo has 5 catches in this first half.
Well, you want to get physical on Nick Lewis, and you want to get up and try and be aggressive, and that's what Corey Banks does. He tries to get a jam, but pretty nice from outside to in kind of swim move there by Nick Lewis to get open.
Came into the game ranked 5th in the CFL in reception yardage. Burris pumped. Now into the flat. Elijah Thurman has a catch. And that's his first of the night.
Yeah, so Judy back at home, and I guess Imani, the daughter, is expecting a new brother or sister, and so Judy, hang in there. Just wait until Mark Washington makes his way back home if you can. That was the message, but a lot on Mark Washington's mind right now, obviously, and playing a pretty good football game.
91 seconds left, first half. 2nd and 2 out of the backfield. Lewis, and he'll just step out. The momentum taking him when he might have had another 5 yards ahead of him, but it is a first down.
Dante Marsh and Corey Banks right now are discussing the coverage because both are having their problems at that short side, giving Nick Lewis a little bit too much room. Corey Banks, there he's going to drop off, and they thought they were going to switch, and basically meaning if Nick Lewis runs that out pattern, he drops him to Dante Marsh. Marsh picks him up from the corner spot, and Corey Banks goes with the wide receiver. Both of them that time went with Elijah Thurman. Nick Lewis was wide open. If he keeps in bounds, he probably scores.
Here in the second quarter, it's been an impressive Calgary offense at work. And not only is Henry Burris chewing up yards, but keeping Dave Dickinson off the field. There's only one problem. They have yet to push it across the goal line. And a timeout called, so Burris gets a chance to confer with offensive coordinator Steve Barato. Henry Burris has always played well against the Lions. 5 straight 300-yard games against BC. And after a slow start tonight, he's got things rolling. First and 10 from the 26. And now looking up top, looking for Lewis. Just out of his reach as Nick Lewis got in behind the Lions secondary.
It looked like Baron Miles was sliding to the weak side to help out on Dante Marsh at the corner position. Nick Lewis is right here in the middle. He's going to end up being the seam guy going right down here. Now, the safety is usually the guy that will pick up that seam. In this case, it would be Baron Miles, but Miles had gone over to double team on Elijah Thurman on the backside. That's why Lewis was open. And that's a specific called play for Miles to do that. That's his responsibility, but Nick Lewis had a chance.
How about Baron Miles? 40 interceptions, 10 in his career off Henry Burris. 2nd and 10. Burris, Thurman can't hang on. Working against Markeith Knowlton, it looked like a touchdown. And that's the second drop for Thurman.
Well, and this time the Lions go with what's called a cover 2-man defense. Basically, that means 2 guys deep over top with man-to-man coverage underneath. Knowlton is in charge of the coverage underneath, and he just doesn't quit on the play. A perfect throw to get up over top of Knowlton, but he rips it out. before Thurman comes to the ground.
2 drops in the end zone for Elijah Thurman in this opening half. And DeAngelis called upon to try a 33-yarder, his second of the game. Sandro Money again, 3 for him, and it's a 3-point Lion lead. 72 seconds left in his first half for Dave Dickinson to go to work. Leading by 3, they start at the 35, short drop. Smith out of the backfield. Told that he is not as proficient as a receiver as Antonio Warren, but has a catch here. Up to the 41 and 6 for Joe Smith.
That's the question on him. You know, how will he catch the football? Because in the Canadian Football League, unlike NFL Europe or the National Football League, catching the football for running back as important as running it.
2nd and 4. Dickinson over the middle has G-Roy Simon. A catch and a first down at the 52.
Plenty of time for Dave Dickinson to move the football. He's going to go to the hurry up and call plays on the line of scrimmage.
You know, Wally Buono talked about this today. They work on this constantly all week in practice, different situations, different amount of time for this fire offense. Dickinson, another wicked hit, but got it away underneath. Brett Anderson has his first catch of the night, and Dave Dickinson taking more punishment.
Well, he's running that fire offense, so he's got to bounce back and shake off the cobwebs, but he does take another one. And early in this game, he got up awfully slow after hits like that. This time it's Scott Coe off the corner.
14 yards, Anderson's first catch of the night. And now back to Joe Smith, second catch of this possession for him at the 34 of Calgary. He's about a yard short of a first down, stops the clock with 38 seconds remaining.
G-Roy Simon's going straight down the field here. This is a play that they've run a couple times in a row now. Simon trying to push off the defenders. You're going to see him in isolation here. He's going to push off defenders. That creates the bubble underneath. See 33 come under. When all the defenders have to come back with G-Roy Simon, Joe Smith slides under into that hole and has picked up a couple of catches because of it.
Clock stops. They huddle up. Brett Anderson checks out. Then Lyle Green comes into the game. Second and short, and a flag as they plunge forward.
You know, and that little combination there, Chris, of G-Roy Simon and Joe Smith is so important. We talk about why teams struggle if they get down in the scoring zone, or what's making an offense struggle, and it's all 12 players doing exactly what they have to do in their job. Even if you're not seeing the football on this particular play in the last couple.
Calgary number 91, 5-yard penalty, first down.
Maxey twice tonight, offside.
In the last couple, G-Roy Simon has not been the go-to target, but he has an important role in the play for Joe Smith. If he doesn't do his job, Joe Smith is not open. That's how offenses work.
The first down. Dave Dickinson stayed in on that quarterback sneak. Dickinson to the end zone. Paris Jackson just can't track it down. A missed opportunity there with Jackson open in the end zone.
Well, clearly Dave Dickinson lost the handle of the football because he had an open Paris Jackson coming right across the middle right here, and he steps up in the pocket with a clear throwing lane. Now, it is real hot down there on the turf at McMahon Stadium. I'm wondering if a little sweat on the football or what it was, but he lost the handle. That ball was not as accurate as Dave Dickinson could throw it.
Paris Jackson has the lone touchdown in the game. It's 2nd and 10 from the Calgary 29. Dickinson flushed underneath. The catch is made. Jackson with it at the 20, and he's going to be a yard short of the first down. And maybe 2.
Well, he didn't get a real good BC Lions spot if you're a Lions fan watching. If you're a Calgary fan, you love the spot. It looked like Paris Jackson slid to about a yard away, Chris, and then the spot put him back. Now, it probably is sort of in between where his knee touched and where the ball ended up, but it forces Wally Buono to go with Paul McCallum.
And you want to make sure you get points in this situation. Calgary didn't in Hamilton late in the first half last week. Edmonton didn't last night on their last possession of the first half. Paul McCallum from 28 yards. Right down the middle. Expanding the Lions' lead to 6. With 3 seconds remaining in the first half. So once again, BC, and I hesitate to say this after what we saw in the last play last night, but BC will, in all likelihood, take a lead to the dressing room once again at halftime. And we'll remind you that coming up at halftime, the panel will weigh in on what they've seen in the opening half. The question wasn't how BC would start tonight, it's how the Lions will finish.
That's right. And how will Henry Burris finish is another question. He got out to a slow start in the first quarter, tried some deep throws, didn't work, has driven the ball quite well in the second quarter, but not scored the majors he's looking for. 2 drops by Elijah Thurman.
So Burris takes a knee. And that's the end of 30 minutes here at McMahon Stadium. Wally Buono's team with a 6-point lead as we throw it to Dave Randor.
Thanks, Chris, and they will certainly take that lead, but for the second straight week, the Calgary Stampeders failed to score a touchdown in the opening half, and when you're doing it at home, that's not good. When we come back, among other things, Jock will tell you about an emerging receiving star in the Canadian Football League. He's got the only touchdown in this ball game. There he is. His name is Paris. 13-7 BC at the half.
Live at the half, brought to you by Wendy's, the official hamburger of the CFL. Do Wendy's, do what tastes right.
This was the Boston Pizza CFL poll question we asked you. Do you agree with the benching of Antonio Warren, the Lions running back, who's sitting at home watching this one on TV? And Antonio needed to log on a few more times there because the yes has taken 60% to 40%. Antonio will be back in the lineup, but there's no question. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at you.
Well, he's probably not happy with that result, I'm sure.
I'm not happy with that result.
Well, yeah. And Joe Smith is running the ball for the Lions. Who's the best Canadian receiver in the league right now? Claremont's hurt, so we'll kind of put him aside for now.
Ben Cahoon.
You can't really count Ben Cahoon.
No, grew up in the States. Can't count him.
So who is it?
It's got to be Paris Jackson. And he's emerging. I mean, he's not there yet, but he is the best of what we've got here in the CFL at the moment. And I'm going to show you a little bit how the BC Lions managed to get him open on the lone touchdown of the football game. Calgary playing just your straight, basic cover 3. Grace is responsible for getting into the flat, and here you got Chapman, who's got the deep third. Now keep an eye on the corner, who's got a jam, and then look inside and help out. Now BC's going to run a very simple pattern. They're just going to get Jackson up the sideline right here and get Simon in the flat. Now look at these two guys right here. Look at the jam and how that doesn't really emerge, and then look at Chapman way far too inside. He is responsible for helping his corner. His corner doesn't get much of a jam. Chapman doesn't get to the sideline, and Chris, it's an easy touchdown. Chapman is going to get chatted to in meetings about that. That is for sure.
Hey, Paris Jackson, great Canadian receiver. But how about Ryan Thelwell? Because all of a sudden, his ability is so important to these BC Lions because behind G. Roy Simon, behind Paris Jackson, Ryan Thelwell has to make some plays. Watch this crossing pattern. Remember when Tony Simmons for the BC Lions would take this and make extra yards? Well, Ryan Thelwell got boxed in, but he has to have that ability. On the opposite side of the football, Corey Banks. It's great to see this young man make his presence on the field because out of the Ottawa dispersal dress, some people felt he was one of the best players that the BC Lions picked up. First half was easy to assess. BC Lions started fast, slowed down. Calgary Stampeders, they started slow and they started to speed up.
Yeah, it was last week in Hamilton. They really relied on Joffrey Reynolds. We heard Chris and Glenn talk about Joffrey and his average yards per carry, and we got a pretty good rushing race going here. Charles Roberts last night had 10 carries for 33 yards, and he's a little behind Joffrey Reynolds, who leads the league in rushing, and it's because of plays like this. He just basically loses 23 Washington for the BC Lions. And I'm telling you, Joffrey makes it look so easy. He's the best north-south runner in the league. I'm not saying he's the best back in the league. He certainly can be considered with one of them. You talk about rising stars in this league. This is his, third year now? And he is simply a cut above most all running backs.
There's a long way to go, and Charles Roberts will certainly, and other backs will have something to say about who wins the rushing title. But the Stamps have not had a running back lead the league since 1986. Jock, any idea? You'll never get this. Gary Allen.
No.
Gary Allen, remember him?
I played with him.
1,153 yards.
Wow.
This guy's got 6 catches in the first half.
He's not bad. 74 yards for Nick Lewis. Brian Williams is next. Welcome back to Friday Night Football. Here are the halftime numbers brought to you by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet.
David, this is about as even as I've ever seen statistically between two teams. What is the difference? The red zone efficiency for Calgary, they're still settling for field goals and not touchdowns.
Yeah, big time. That is a problem for the Stamps. Somewhere near one of the end zones out at McMahon Stadium, but Brian Williams is positioned with a special guest. We'll take you out there right now. Hello again, Brian.
Hello again, David. With me is the former CFL Commissioner, Doug Mitchell, a prominent Calgary attorney, partner with Borden Ladner, is that right?
Borden Ladner Gervais.
All right. And principal owner of the Calgary Stampeders. You're the man to talk about when we talk about a search for a new commissioner in this league, a replacement for Tom Wright. Is the process underway? Do you have a committee? Just what is the situation?
Yeah, the process is underway. We definitely have a committee, and I think we'll probably find a decision before the end of the season.
Are you involved in this committee? I mean,
I'm not involved in the committee. I was kind of ex officio earlier, but I declined. I got a full-time law practice and several other things going, so I thought it would be better if other people served on the committee.
But you will have something to say in this, right?
Well, certainly it'll come to the Board of Governors, and I am the governor representing the Stampeders, so certainly I'll have a say at that time.
Given what happened to Tom Wright, I mean, sponsorship, you talk to the public, they think he's done a great job. 3 teams, BC, Montreal, and Hamilton, essentially fired him. How are you going to get someone to take this job, and how will you find a good candidate when he looks and says, geez, I don't want to be part of this?
Well, I think there's always good people who are prepared to take a job. We obviously need somebody who I think is a very aggressive, hard-nosed leader. Somebody also, I think, in the new media. We need to go in the new media in this day and age. We need somebody in that particular area. But no, I think part of our problem at the Board of Governors level, to be quite frank about it, is that we don't function as a team, and we need to learn to function as a team. And, you know, I got teased at Ladner Gervais about how can 15 lawyers on our National Board of Directors ever come to a conclusion. The fact of the matter is that we have lots of debate, lots of arguments, but we make a decision and we stick with it, and everybody closes ranks and sticks with the majority because we know what's in the best interest of our law firm. We need to do that in the CFL. We need to act as a team at the Board of Governors level and see what's in the best interest of the league.
All right, I appreciate you being frank. Let me be frank. You got 3 teams, British Columbia, Hamilton, and Montreal, running this league, privately owned teams. Is it possible to function as a team this league when you've got public and private?
Well, first of all, I think when you say 3 people running the league, I think you're talking about the past. I don't believe that that's happening in this present day.
I will tell you, those are the 3 that got rid of Tom Wright.
Well, I'm not sure they got rid of Tom Wright, but the fact of the matter is times are changing in the Canadian Football League at the Board of Governors level.
Okay, and you think it is possible then for public and private to work together as a team?
I don't think. Let's look at the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I mean, they wouldn't have a team if they weren't a community-owned team. So I think there's lots of room for community-owned teams, and I think we can function as a group and be successful and attract very, very qualified people in the league.
Doug, when you talk about qualified people, in your opinion, are you looking for a commissioner that's a strong leader, a marketer? Bob Wettenall of Montreal says you want a marketer. Or, as others would believe, you simply want a yes man. What's the answer?
No, definitely not. No, absolutely not. We don't want a yes man. We want somebody, as I said, who's a hard-nosed leader, knows something about the new video. When I was in Washington recently, I watched a CFL game on the internet, $9.95. I said to myself, 1 million viewers around the world, that's $10 million watching one football game. That's where we need to go in this day and age, but definitely not. We don't want a yes man. We want a take charge leader.
You interested?
No. I'm totally happy with it. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I got the greatest job in the world.
All right, I hear a name now, Dave Randorf. I'm serious about this, not a joke. I hear the former Canadian ambassador to Washington, Premier of New Brunswick, Frank McKenna, is being considered. Is that true?
I have absolutely no knowledge of that, but you know, now that you've asked me that question, Frank McKenna, I think, would be an absolute fantastic person as commissioner of the Canadian Football League.
You've got no other names for me?
I have no other names, and you didn't get that first one from me either.
Spoken like a true attorney. Doug Mitchell, thank you.
Pleasure, Brian. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Doug. Dave, back to you.
Thanks, Brian. Doug, I've got a name for you. Chris Schultz.
No!
Chris Schultz.
You got to do it, Chris.
For Commissioner of the Canadian Football League.
Never.
I'm G. Roy Simon of the BC Lions. You're watching Friday Night Football on TSN, Canada's sports leader.
Thank you, G. Roy Simon. TSN is proud to present this game in high definition, courtesy of Sony, and available in 5.1 digital Dolby surround sound.
When you get that surround sound, the river runs right through it, right through your living room.
We get some of those big hits in the second half, too. 13-7 as we head to the third quarter. And you don't want to oversell a game in the first third of the season, but again, we've mentioned this a few times this year. Every time when you've got 4 teams separated by 2 points, when they play head-to-head, it could have a critical impact on the final standings.
Well, it really does. How about the BC Lions? They certainly do not want to drop 3 straight games in this season, especially with Wally Buono and his new close to zero tolerance.
Trying to snap a 2-game losing streak. Here's Aaron Lockett. Lockett nicely works his way across the 45 to give Dave Dickinson terrific field position to start. And let's compare the 2 starting quarterbacks, former teammates here in Calgary.
First of all, for Dave Dickinson, basically the way he started most of the games this season, hitting on about 75%. A lot of Henry Burris' numbers coming in the second quarter. See if he can build on that second quarter and maybe finish some drives, because you can see the big donuts under the touchdown and interception. 0-0 there.
And as the boys back on the panel mentioned, so much of the stats are dead even the difference. BC put one across in the first half. And they get the ball to Joe Smith off the left side. And Smith up across the 50, close to 5.
Well, it's always a game about adjustments. Jacques Chapdelaine and the entire coaching staff of the BC Lions, they have had a little criticism pointed towards their direction as to the halftime adjustments or lack thereof made in games this year. There's Jacques Chapdelaine, and see what kind of adjustments he makes. Even if you're ahead in a football game at halftime, you still have to make adjustments and do some self-scouting.
Second down. Dickinson under pressure, and he dragged. Well, now drops the ball. He got away from Raheem Abdullah, but then put the ball down on the carpet. And the second takeaway of the game is a Trey Young fumble recovery.
Dave Dickinson is asking Wally Buono right now to throw the replay flag. He thinks his knees were down when he was first tackled from behind. Just to the left of the goalpost, Dave Dickinson wants to sneak out to the left. Now there's
the contact, and I thought the knee came down. Cornelius Anthony with the hit, and the ball popped loose into the hand of the safety. And there's the knee.
And immediately Dave Dickinson got up when he saw the fumble and looked to Wally Buono on the bench and said, throw the replay flag. I was down by contact.
And it appears they're not even going to challenge. I think the officials have changed the call.
They have. They
on the
changed
field without the challenge, and they get it right, and it forces third down, and the punt team comes on for BC.
Punt team a much better scenario, though, than the fumble.
And good officiating to get it right. And without the Lions needing to earn their challenge. McCallum angling the punt. And this one will go out of bounds at the 9. A terrific Paul McCallum kick that'll back up Henry Burris.
Holiday Inn Hotels, the official business hotel of the CFL. With free high-speed internet in every room, the office is just a click away.
Terrific 55-yard punt by Paul McCallum as the Calgary Stampeders starting at their 9. First possession, second half. Trailing 13-7. Copper Reynolds trying to kick it outside. Not a good idea when Brent Johnson's waiting for you.
Well, this is not characteristic of Joffrey Reynolds. He makes this cut to bounce outside often, but he won't turn his shoulder pads. I'll show you right here. Look at his shoulder pads. They're square there. Now, he usually hits the line of scrimmage square. As soon as he turns those shoulder pads to the sideline, he's in big trouble. That's not his forte. Keep the shoulders north-south. He plays well. Turn them to east-west, and that's where he gets in trouble. He gets in trouble there. It doesn't happen very often.
Loss of 2 for Reynolds. 2nd and 12. Burst from his end zone has a completion. His favorite target on the night is Nick Lewis, and it looks like a first down catch by Lewis.
And again, so far, Corey Banks in this matchup has elected to play off and give Nick Lewis some room underneath. Almost like he's prepared for the time that Nick Lewis is going to try and go deep, but he's giving him enough room to catch a bunch of these underneath passes, 8 to 10 yards.
7th catch of the game for Nick Lewis. And despite the fact ranked 5th in the league in reception yardage, there's a lot of talk about some early season drops. Not tonight. Back to Reynolds. And again wrapped up.
See now, but there he stopped, but there he doesn't lose as many yards as he did on the last play. That's good defense by the BC Lions, but Joffrey Reynolds kept his shoulders square to the line of scrimmage. Javier Glatt got there. Now, I've been watching this matchup between Javier Glatt and Joffrey Reynolds, and Glatt has most of the game so far tonight had to work through the block of an offensive lineman. It's a tough situation. The middle linebacker wants to be free to go to the football.
Yeah, he has said that's the biggest adjustment he's had to make. Moving into the middle from the Sam linebacker spot, it's 2nd and 10. And this play doesn't get off. And who moved first?
Ryan Phillips was coming on the blitz. Don't think he was offside. He lined up as the extra defensive back and snuck up to the line.
Procedure, Calgary number 50. 5-yard penalty. It remains 2nd down.
It happens often when a guard like Jay McNeil, who gets called there, his job at times is to peel out of the offensive line and pick up a blitzing secondary player from the outside, and he likely saw out of the corner of his eye Ryan Phillips coming, and he tried to get there too soon.
Jay, a 2-time All-Canadian and 4 times the top offensive lineman on the Stampeder team at 2nd and 15. 3 down lineman for the Lions, 9 drop. Jermaine Copeland incomplete. Being watched by Markeith Knowlton, the dime back.
Well, Knowlton played it perfectly, and he's been matched up on Jermaine Copeland a little bit in this game. In fact, he was the guy that was behind Copeland when Copeland had a touchdown that was called back by penalty. Since then, Markeith Knowlton has played pretty well there. He's right there, and he's got nice underneath technique. He's going to get a little bit of his hands on the shoulder pads and force Copeland to reroute.
Not a great Dale's kick. Bouncing around for Lockett to field at the Calgary 48 with a no yards flag as well. So Dave Dickinson is going to have great field position when we come back.
Closed captioning of the CFL on TSN is brought to you by Castrol. It's not just motor oil, it's liquid engineering.
Kirk Dales had led the CFL in punting going into the Hamilton game last week. He had the one bad punt, and I'm going to give him a little alibi with it. He probably won't use, but he missed 2 days of practice with back spasms, and you wonder how healthy he was in the game last week. Very healthy in the first half of this game, 59-yard average in the first half, but a 33-yarder here has given BC great field position, a 5-yard no yards, and Dave Dickinson starts at the Calgary 43. Working on a 6-point lead. 4 receivers to the wide side, and Joe Smith lunging down to the 37 of Calgary. We've got Scott Coe mic'd. Let's check in on the sounds of the game.
There we go.
Quads, quads, quads!
What's up, Joe? I got your ankle, buddy. You're good. You're good.
Almost looks like the hair is toned down tonight. Be checking in with Scott again. Oh, the backfield. A nice catch by Brett Anderson, his second of the game. At the 25, it's a BC first down.
Yeah, that's Scott Coe, you know, and he's often a little more vocal. Is he shy all of a sudden?
What's going on?
I think we'll get a little more sound out of Scott Coe before this one's over. He's usually a little more talkative than that. Maybe he's shy with the mic on, but we appreciate when players do that because it really brings the viewer into the huddle.
First time we've ever said an understated Scott Coe. Lions threatening at the Calgary 25, 1st and 10. Here they come. Dickinson ducked underneath. Howdy, get away. John Grace in pursuit, but Dickinson down to the 10-yard line. A 15-yard scramble by the former Stampeder quarterback.
You know, he does this more than people give him credit for. Dave Dickinson has this uncanny ability to be able to guess when the pressure's going to arrive and time up his little duck perfectly. He does that more often than people will give him credit.
Got underneath Cornelius Anthony, and instead of a sack, it's a 15-yard gain. First down at the 10-yard line. Dickinson, Lyle Green. Green close to the 2.
Boy, and G.R.I. Simon opened up late. I mean, the play was clearly designed to go to Lyle Green and have G.R.I. Simon as the decoy. He opened up late in the back of the end zone.
Marked at the 3. It'll be second down.
Lyle Green goes out. Brett Anderson comes in as an extra receiver, and they'll leave just one back in the backfield, that being Joe Smith.
Anderson, Thelwell, Acree to the wide side. Simon and Jackson to the boundary. Short drop, looking, so touchdown. Joe Smith,
he can catch.
Heavy collision with Scott Coe, but it is his first CFL touchdown.
Well, he starts out in the backfield in the shotgun formation for Dave Dickinson, and then he's just going to sneak through the line. Here he is right here in the backfield. He's just going to come up here and end up going right out into the flat. Dave Dickinson threads the needle to get it in there, and pretty good contact as he's catching the football from Kobe Reinhardt and hangs on.
So the man that replaces Antonio Warren registers the second Lion touchdown on the night. They don't get the convert down. Buck Pierce trying to make something out of nothing. Throws an incompletion to Nut McKay Lozier, the intended receiver. Well, they box the convert and lead by 12. Well, he's got a souvenir from his first trip to Calgary in the CFL. Joe Smith with the touchdown.
G.R.I. Simon's going to run the slant route on this play, on this touchdown, and he freezes Kobe Reinhardt for a split second enough so that Reinhardt can't get there in time to disrupt this play. He gets the hit on Joe Smith, but Smith hangs on.
Wally Bono didn't like his CFL debut. He's got to like what Joe Smith has brought to the offense tonight. J.R. Ruffin on the return. J.R. Ruffin down the sidelines and pushed out on the BC side of half. One of the best kick returns we've seen this year, 45 yards for Ruffin.
You got a field return and then you've got a short sideline, but you see how Ruffin sets up his blocks by going to his right. He goes to his right for about 5 yards and then breaks back down that short sideline and has really set up good blocking angles for his friends, for his helpers.
Let's join Jermaine Franklin.
How you doing, guys? Something we haven't seen in about 7 years. Brian Clark injured on the sideline in street clothes with a hamstring injury. How tough is it for you right now?
Yeah, it's extremely tough out here. You know, I can't really
all I can do is yell for the guys and offer my support and, you know, tell them what I see out there. But, you know, it's just in a tough position, one I'm not used to, and hopefully one I won't be in for much longer.
You're the chief play caller. How are they doing out there without you, but with you helping them out from the sideline?
They're doing a good job. I mean, last drive got them. You know, we should have had Dickey in the backfield there, but, you know, they're doing a good job. You know, it's just a matter of staying with the plays, and, you know, they're going to do fine, and, you know, CA's doing a good job out there as well.
Thanks, Brian.
All right.
Brian Clark off to a terrific start this year, one of the top defensive players in the CFL. 2nd and 10, and a completion. Copeland with the catch. Banks will keep him a couple of yards short of the first down, unless, well, let's see the spot. Might be a better spot than I thought.
You know, with Chris, with Brian Clark, you know he won't be out for long. There's his replacement, Cornelius Anthony, and I found it interesting, and I hear this from players all the time. When a guy goes down and the backup comes in, the backup always says, you know, I hate to see my teammate have an injury. You know, I hate to see him suffer an injury, but I am sure excited about my opportunity, and I got to go make it happen out there. And I asked Brian Clark, he said, you know what, he's sincere about it, and Clark said to me, he said, it happens to every player. Sooner or later you get hurt and someone else comes in. And I said, well, what about you? And he said, remember back in 1998? I'm going to throw a name out to you. Larry McSeed. Okay, I didn't remember the name.
Vague.
But a linebacker out of Delaware, played in Montreal, broke his leg. Wow. Brian Clark went in. The rest is history. It happens to every player. Now, Brian Clark hopes that Cornelius Anthony doesn't take his job for good, but that's a risky run when you do get hurt and you're up. Someone else is playing in your spot.
3rd and short. Burris plunging. Are you saying that Larry McSeed is the CFL's Wally Pipp?
Yeah, that's basically it. And believe me, Brian Clark is not going to lose his job in this defense. And I didn't mean to imply that by any stretch of the imagination, because Brian Clark is the heart and soul, and not only that, he's also the brains of that defense, calling plays, getting people set up right, making sure that it is all done correctly from top to bottom on defense.
Stampeders now moving the ball on offense. Remember, the Lions capitalized on great field position after a short punt for a touchdown. Calgary trying to do likewise after a great kick return. And Burris going to the air, looking up top, looking for Thurman, and out of his reach. That connection has not been made tonight.
That was the play that Jermaine Copeland had a touchdown on early in the first half that was called back by penalty. This time they tried to go to Elijah Thurman on it, and Elijah Thurman just was in a different spot than Copeland. I thought that Henry Burris threw it to where Copeland was in the first time, and Thurman was in a completely different area, couldn't make the adjustment.
So a passing down. Joffrey Reynolds comes out of the game, and a 6-receiver pack for Henry Burris.
Back 50. Back 50. Hood.
2nd and 10. Burris nearly picked off. Baron Miles almost had another. Told Wally Buono he was going to get 2 today to get back to an average of 1 per game. Well, he nearly had 1 there.
4 so far on the season. There he is down at the bottom of your screen, and Henry Burris just ignores Tony Miles, who gets a great jump on this football. You see Burris telegraphs his throw. He's looking to the right side the entire way, and I think it was Ryan Phillips, number 21, who plays the outside position. He knows he's got safety help from Baron Miles. He takes away any outside cut from Jermaine Copeland, and was it Phillips that knocked the ball, or at least distracted Miles?
DeAngelis trying from 50, his longest in the year is 52. And this guy has been something. Oh! A little English on that one. A reminder that you can vote for the player of the game coming up in the 4th quarter. Use your Rogers phone and send to Go CFL. And there's some Sandro DeAngelis fans who might give number 12 a vote after that 50-yarder.
Well, that shows his leg strength. Sandro DeAngelis didn't really hit that clean, and just through strength alone, he had enough to get it to that top crossbar, which is right at 10 feet. Bounces off the top and gets the Stampeder bounce.
You got to call that, don't you?
It's like that commercial with, what was it, Larry Bird and Michael Jordan years and years ago? Off the rim, off the rafters, off the backboard, nothing but net.
21 of 23 on the year. He has been a terrific story. Lockett fields this along the sideline and then gets tripped up as he arrived at the 35. So Dave Dickinson comes out once again. A high percentage night for Dickinson, who came into the game leading the CFL in touchdown catches.
Not a lot of yards, sorry, Chris, for Dave Dickinson, though. And he's usually, he's at 78%, but the yardage not quite at the level that he's used to.
Under 4.5 minutes to go here in the third quarter. A 9-point Lion lead. There's a pump, and he's got G-Roy Simon at the Calgary 45-yard line.
Well, and Dave Dickinson knew he's got to add some yardage. So what does he do? He goes down the seam to G-Roy Simon, and G-Roy Simon finds a nice hole in this defense. Calgary Stampeders, Wes Lysak playing deep. He knows he's got a little underneath help from George White, and Lysak has to break from that deep zone to kind of come up there, but Dave throws it right in the numbers.
31 for G-Roy Simon. Dickinson quickens the pace, drops it off, and this one Joe Smith can't haul in.
Scott Cole was coming from the backside, and he had a little bit of help off the edge. And Joe Smith snuck underneath those two rushing Calgary defenders, just couldn't hang on. Scott Cole rushed the throw.
So it'll be 2nd and 10 from the Stamps 45-yard line.
I believe Tony Tiller was the defensive back.
Early movement, Sheldon Napastuk jumps the gun. Was he drawn offside? Of course, we've had a lot of talk about how BC would play in the second half, making adjustments. And is it not difficult for a team that has led often by big scores to make halftime adjustments?
Well, more difficult,
Offside.
yeah, because
Calgary number 92, 5-yard penalty. It remains 2nd down.
more difficult for the team that is leading, simply because if things are going well and you're leading, it's tougher to find those errors. They're not quite as obvious. But still just as important to self-scout and look at what will be the next trend. If we're having success with G-Roy Simon, how will they defend that, and where do we go from there?
Let's see where they go on 2nd and 5 after the offside. 4 receivers wide side. Dickinson looks the other way, looks for Simon, and he's got it! G-Roy Simon over Kobe Reinhart.
G-Roy Simon is the only receiver on the backside, so Dave Dickinson knows one thing. He's got one-on-one coverage, and he can see Reinhart up and bump and run. That's an automatic for G-Roy Simon. If the defensive back is going to play press coverage, be right up in the face of the receiver, in this case G-Roy Simon, it's an automatic for Simon to go deep down the sideline, and Dave Dickinson obviously trusts number 81.
I'm not seeing double coverage. What's he complaining about? 31 and 33-yard catches on this drive for G-Roy. And the Lions threaten from the 7. Dickinson. Pass. Oh, baby. Paris Jackson holds on as he was leveled by Cornelius Anthony. Put that one on the hit parade.
Well, you knew the timing was just a bit off. How does Paris Jackson hang on to that football? Oh, my. Well, that's another indication that Paris Jackson has taken that next step. And Cornelius Anthony trying to make a name for himself. Come across that area, I'll be waiting.
And somehow up, Bill Rochelle going to help him collect his thoughts. Boy, that was in the Jackie Mitchell, Dave Dickinson, Richter scale class.
You know, the BC Lions run a lot of crossing routes, and they ask their receivers to be strong over the middle, knowing that there's linebackers hanging out there. And you can see how that ball floated on Dave Dickinson just a little bit and led Paris Jackson to the hit from Cornelius Anthony. Anthony looks at his scorecard and says, Anthony won so far.
Yep.
Paris Jackson, well, won. He's got a touchdown too early, but.
Saying I've been waiting 2 years as an understudy for that shot.
Exactly. And you see a little attention to the chin of Paris Jackson. And it's like he's going to be okay. His equipment's falling apart. His chin's split open, but he'll go for repairs, and that was some kind of hit.
Yep, Cornelius Anthony and Paris Jackson is going to take his time. Probably Brian Clark's on the sidelines, and he's got to be green with envy. That could have been me.
Yeah, and this is what Paris Jackson does in that case when he's on the ground. He does basically an inventory, starting with the feet and moving up. Okay, feet, ankles okay, knee, that doesn't feel great. Back, quite sore. Chin, no, that's not right. So you go through the inventory, and that's why it takes him some time to gather himself, but he looks like he'll be okay.
Boy, that was some kind of catch and hit. It's second and goal from the floor. Dickinson, end zone, picked off. J.R. Ruffin with speed. And Dickinson with a shoestring tackle to prevent a touchdown. But a huge turnover by the Calgary defense as Dave Dickinson's picked off in the end zone for the 3rd time in 2 weeks.
The Lions love to use this bunch formation. They use it down in the goal line, and a mistake by the receivers. Too much. There's the bunch. 1, 2, 3 to the right of the formation. Brett Anderson and Ryan Thelwell right next to each other. That is a mistake by the receivers. And J.R. Ruffin makes him pay for that error. And that's the 3rd interception in 2 games for Dave Dickinson in the opponent's end zone.
Second pick of the night for the Calgary Stampeders. They start at their 35. Let's see if that swings the momentum. Burris over the middle has a completion. And once again, Nick Lewis has a catch at midfield, enjoying a huge night.
And this time, nice route running from Nick Lewis to bend into the middle, basically running a post and then a crossing route. It's like this. He's going to come down, go to the post, and then cut across. Very difficult for Corey Banks to cover that kind of pattern. You're going to see the right of your screen. There's the angle. Then he breaks it off, and Banks is in a trail position.
First down in the pitch, left side. Reynolds looks for a crease and gets 4. Ryan Phillips steps up from the secondary with first contact on the big running back.
You know, Corey Banks there's a lot of catches. Corey Banks early in the season, people were wondering what happened to Corey Banks. Guy led the CFL in interceptions a year ago and comes into BC as a big signing. Obviously, they've been happy with his play. He does not have an interception. He was complaining he wasn't seeing the football very much. Teams were throwing away from him. Well, tonight, covering Nick Lewis, he has seen the football a ton.
Should be the last play of the 3rd quarter. Second down, pressure from flat. Burris gets it away. It's picked off. Dante Marsh has it. Marsh getting outside. With the block, still going. Reynolds can't track him down. Dante Marsh, touchdown, BC. "62 yards on the interception return for a touchdown."
Henry Burris has struggled throwing on the run. He did in the 1st quarter, he did, and he has in the second half of this football game. Now he's running to his left, all kinds of pressure. First of all, not a wise decision to throw it back into the field of play, into the middle of that defense, and Dante Marsh says, thank you very much. How about that open field running? As he bobs and weaves his way to the end zone.
So Henry Burris has thrown his 6th interception of the season. And suddenly, when momentum appeared to be going in Calgary's favor. The Lions come up with the biggest defensive play of the night. McCallum adds the extra point. And BC opens up a big lead here in Calgary. Stats after 3 quarters brought to you by Rona, proud league-wide sponsor of the CFL.
On the first quarter, it was all BC. It was 9 first downs to 1 in that quarter. Calgary has come back in that department with 16 first downs, but bad decision by Henry Burris puts his team in a bind on the interception by Dante Marsh.
Lions without a sack. Henry Burris wishes he would have conceded a sack, and now the final play of the third quarter is the biggest play of the game so far.
Well, no question, and it's a momentum changer. An interception for a touchdown by Dante Marsh, who plays it perfectly in the zone, and bad decision as we see Danny McManus now starting to warm up on the Calgary sidelines. And this is why Danny McManus was signed by the Calgary Stampeders in the offseason.
So Danny McManus loosens up. The clipboard is down. And he'll likely come in to try and engineer a fourth quarter comeback against a Lions team that has struggled in the final frame. J.R. Ruffin can't escape. There are flags. Let's take another look at Dante Marsh and that huge interception return.
Dante Marsh is playing the zone defense, and he's right out here at the corner. Now, what he's going to do is sit right there, and he knows one thing. Nick Lewis from the inside here is going to sit down into that zone. He plays it, jumps the football. Tough throw for Henry Burris to make across his body into the middle, and Dante Marsh says, don't try and throw it back in there. Danny McManus is coming in the football game for the Calgary Stampeders.
So the crowd, a ripple of applause as McManus comes on in relief of Henry Burris. A holding call on the return will mean that McManus starts at his 13-yard line. There's the line on Burris tonight.
I talked to Tom Higgins about this possibility and whether or not and how he would use Danny McManus this season. Talked to him early on in the year, and he said they would like to try and take Danny McManus with those great career numbers, 53,000 yards passing, and use him in situations like this. Not necessarily means that, it doesn't necessarily mean, I should say, that Henry Burris is out for the entire game. Maybe just a series or two.
So McManus to work. And quickly to Marcus Howell, who lunges further ahead, a first down, and that was vintage McManus, that two-step drop.
Well, you'll see a very different style at quarterback, obviously, between Henry Burris and Danny McManus. Burris is going to drop back, move, and use his legs in the pocket, try and throw on the run, which he struggled at tonight. And Danny McManus is all about timing and quick release.
Marcus Howell's first catch of the night, 5th on the year. And now looking downfield, he's got Marcus Howell, and nobody's going to catch him. Touchdown, McManus to Howell, 81 yards.
Wow. Can you say quarterback controversy? That's how quickly it can happen for a team.
Well, apparently he doesn't like his clipboard.
He threads the needle. Danny McManus on this throw to Marcus Howell down the sideline. At first, I thought the throw might be going to Jermaine Copeland, but he threads the needle past that coverage. Look at the outside. Corey Banks cuts underneath. Howell with great concentration, not distracted by Banks. And just like that, 2 throws, Danny McManus has grabbed the momentum back for the Calgary Stampeders.
Well, that changes things in a real hurry. First minute of the fourth quarter. DeAngelis puts it through, and the Stampeders get right back in it.
Castrol. It's not just motor oil, it's liquid engineering.
Danny McManus has just thrown his first touchdown pass as a Calgary Stampeder, only touchdown pass number 259 of his tremendous career that is apparently far from over. And Marcus Howell has his first touchdown catch as a Stamp. Well, how does this play on the psyche of these Lions? Dante Marsh looked like he provided a little insurance here, but there's more work to do.
Well, Danny McManus, the one thing about McManus is that personnel for him is not necessarily the reason he's going to throw one way or another way. He's going to read defenses. Danny McManus, like Dave Dickinson, will read the defense, and if Marcus Howell is the guy on that particular defense, he's going to him, and Howell makes a nice catch. Poor angle by Corey Banks, but you mentioned the mental psyche for the BC Lions. Here we are in the fourth quarter, and the first play of it they give up, or the second play of it they give up a touchdown.
Lots of time, 13.5 minutes to go. The pitch to Joe Smith. Trying to get outside. Now hits north. A good run by Smith, who has a touchdown catch in the game and has been productive on the ground as well.
Pretty good block on the outside by Paris Jackson. Remember, he was knocked out of the game by Cornelius Anthony early on with a huge hit. And clearly, he's okay. He comes in with a good block to get Joe Smith to the outside there.
Guys never cease to amaze me. I'm still surprised Dickinson didn't miss it down last week, and for Jackson to pop up and get right back into the offense, a credit to him. And Matt Dunnigan's rolling his eyes right now, thinking about the pencil neck announcer who wonders how these guys could take those hits.
Well, they dish them out too, and that's what you love about the game.
Second and a yard, back to Joe Smith. One move, and goodbye. Louisiana Tech's Joe Smith gets it right back for the Lions. 2nd and 1, and he dashes 66 yards for a touchdown. And Antonio Warren's not back in the Lions lineup.
Oh my.
Very soon.
Wally Buono, like the size and speed of Joe Smith, and he gets the opening at the line of scrimmage. And a nice block by Lyle Green, the fullback, and then one move in the open field on Jermaine Chapman. Goodbye.
9 rushes, 119 yards for Joe Smith, who had 1 yard rushing in his CFL debut against Saskatchewan. I guess the Lions' psyche was not shattered by Danny McManus.
Castrol. It's not just motor oil, it's liquid engineering.
Let me show you that great block right there by Lyle Green on John Grace as they overrun here. He's going to get the kick-out block and the seal for Joe Smith. Here they go. You see number 7 get a little bit wide. Lyle Green, a nice block right there. And away goes Joe Smith, one man to beat. And Chapman can't get him down.
Well, again, in the first half, we mentioned Wally Buono said, you know, if he hits the creases, he might pop one for 20, maybe a couple. I don't know if he had 66 yards in mind, but he has to like what he's seen from Joe Smith, who has a touchdown on the ground and through the air.
You mentioned the mental psyche, that it didn't affect the line. Joe Smith doesn't know anything about this fourth quarter drought. He hasn't played.
I'll get in there and fix that. They are roughing. And he's hauled down at the 29-yard line. Well, a reminder, TSN's coverage of the 2006 British Open from Royal Liverpool in England continues tomorrow with the 3rd round. Here's your leader. And what a shot today on 14. Just like that, although he didn't know it was in at first.
What happened? Oh, we made it? All right.
And an eagle and a 1-stroke lead, but Ernie Els is right behind. Mike Weir, Stephen Ames, 8 and 9 off the pace. And 3rd round coverage starts at 7 Eastern on TSN. Back to work for Danny McManus. Goes to the other wideout, Brett Ralph. with the catch.
You know, and maybe that play by Joe Smith ignites the BC Lion defense. They've not been that strong in the fourth quarter, and that was a pretty solid hit. Looked like LeVar Glover there on the outside had a little more jump to his step there after Joe Smith answers the Danny McManus touchdown throw to Marcus Howell.
Danny McManus, a 17-year vet. First 5 years, he was a backup. Backup with the BC Lions. And in trouble here, down he goes. Brent Johnson has his 5th sack of the year.
Well, and this one probably that much tougher for Brent Johnson, not necessarily because of the play or who's blocking him or the quarterback playing at this point. Here he is down here. Brent Johnson has missed a couple of days of practice this week because he's had 2, not 1, but 2 root canals. Now, if you've had a root canal, you know that when you walk, it hurts. Every time you step, it hurts. It vibrates in that jaw. He's had 2. He's playing a hard, tough game tonight and comes up with another sack.
Came into this week's action tied for the sack lead in the CFL, and of course led last year with 17. Burke Dales, what a kick. Lockett back inside his 25, and now heading up and cut down by Khalid Abdullah after a 58-yard punt and a 12-yard return. There's the top Canadian in the CFL from a year ago, registering his first sack of the night. And for every sack in tonight's game, Purolator donates the quarterback's weight in food to a local food bank. Purolator, where business is going. And Winnipeg has made some healthy contributions. We'd like to remind folks in Hamilton that it will be Purolator sack night at Ivor Wynn next Friday.
Winnipeg had 5 last night, add to their total.
So still plenty of time. A 16-point BC lead. And over the backfield, the new Lion hero, Joe Smith. Close to another first down at the 48.
I'm going to say it. No ordinary Joe.
No ordinary Joe, not tonight.
You know, and we were wondering how he would play in his first game. Of course, the question mark was catching the football. He's made some tough catches. Wally Buono clearly making a good decision to go with Joe Smith. And there's a lot of talk about this, and Antonio Warren, and the great veteran he's been, the consistent player that he's been, and Wally Buono thought he might get a little more into that position with Joe Smith, and Smith has answered the call.
A lot of talk about Warren's agent wanting a meeting with Wally Buono, and he says, I'll meet with him.
They've talked throughout the season about assignments that have been missed, and Antonio Warren has got a lot of football left in him. But this is always about the next one, and the football it's that kind of game, whether you're Brian Clark and Hurt and wondering how Cornelius Anthony plays, or Joe Smith getting his opportunity.
Second and short, Jackson dove ahead and gets drilled back, and Scott Coe trying to make sure he doesn't get to the stick.
You know, and Antonio Warren does have a lot of football left in him, and maybe in a couple of weeks it's not with the BC Lions. Maybe it's with the BC Lions in a different role. He's been a special teams player early in his career where he returned kicks primarily. But Wally Buono just felt that his play overall, the level of his play had dropped to a point where he wanted to try and make a change, and boy, Joe Smith has taken full advantage of that opportunity, hasn't he?
Yes, this will be a motivator, and the question now is, does Warren get another chance in BC?
Well, one of the talk and part of what was going on this week was when Sam Young was a healthy scratch on the corner for LeVar Glover. He was cut after the week he was a healthy scratch.
When Glover showed he could handle the corner. Joe Smith again, this time not much. Off the right side. Maybe a yard, 2nd and 9 for the Lions.
And I agree with the coach's assessment, and it wasn't just the BC Lions coaches, also the Calgary Stampeders that saw a little of Joe Smith, that he does remind me a little of Joffrey Reynolds. He's got that same sort of body type, big, strong north-south runner. We've seen some good vision in the holes, some good strong running when he comes to avoiding that first tackler.
He did have 8 carries for 82 yards against Calgary in the preseason, which made an impression. 2nd and 9. Dickinson looks for Thelwell, incomplete. And the Calgary defense does what it had to do. Stop this Lions attack and get the football back.
And lots of time for Danny McManus and the Calgary Stampeders. This game far from over with what's happened to the BC Lions in the 4th quarters of football games this year. There is plenty of time left in this football game.
Yes, and after last night, this decision desk is not going to declare anything final until I hear the gun.
You know, all the years I've been involved in this game, I have never seen a 100-yard throw and run to win it with no time on the clock. That will be a first and maybe the last.
Yep. McCallum just got it away.
Right up the middle, baby.
Not the last big finish in the CFL.
Nope. Ruffin can't escape. Brought down at the 16. Stamps go to work on offense. Joffrey Reynolds has the ball at the 24-yard line, and who would have thought that the league's leading rusher would have been overshadowed in the rushing game tonight?
Well, certainly a big story coming in with Joffrey Reynolds leading the Canadian Football League, and so much praise thrown his direction across this league by coaches on other teams. And Joe Smith stole a little of the thunder here in Calgary. Lots of game to play, though, with 7:20, and we haven't seen the last, obviously, of Joffrey Reynolds. They're going to still need him to be part of that offense. When you look at the numbers, how about that average for Joe Smith? By the way, the last time a BC Lion had a 100-yard rushing game was Casey Printers back in October last year, so against the Montreal Alouettes. So the running back position has not seen a 100-yard running game in a while until no ordinary Joe.
I do remember a guy by the name of Warren with 160 yards in a Grey Cup game.
Well, that's why I truly believe Antonio Warren has a lot of football left in him.
Penalty was against Calgary. Procedure call, and Joffrey Reynolds going to get that back, but cut down by LeVar Glover after a 6-yard gain that could have been a whole lot more if not for the corner.
Yeah, and LeVar Glover played it well, because I was looking for Joffrey Reynolds. At one point, he has to cut up the field. He bounced outside. Now he gets outside of Glad, then he gets outside of Banks, then he gets outside of Washington. And when he went to get outside the 4th guy, which was LeVar Glover, he couldn't do it. Glover takes that nice step and gets the helmet across the legs of Joffrey Reynolds. And those are some big legs. Those are some big pistons.
Well, you mentioned Sam Young. That's the guy that took his job. So there has been a little movement on the Lion roster. Wally Buono not going to wait around this year after that long losing streak last season. A quiet Jermaine Copeland tonight. Can't bring that one in.
Ryan Phillips was lined up on Jermaine Copeland, and as they ran their pass routes between Copeland and the inside receiver, it looked like Ryan Phillips almost jammed them up together, and that caused Copeland to hesitate a little bit, and he just couldn't get there. Here's a nice look at it for you. They're going to go down the field here. Now, there's the jam right there. You see, I think it was Nick Lewis. It just hesitated. Copeland hesitated for a second and then just couldn't get to the football.
So Burke Dale's back in. Lockett at his 46. And Khalid Abdullah, first contact once again. Well, NASCAR fans, tune in for the Pennsylvania 500 Sunday on TSN. Coverage beginning at 1:30 Eastern, 10:30 in the morning Pacific time. It too is available in TSN high definition. You know, we're at the point in the game where you start reflecting on missed opportunities. Remember Brett Ralph wide open at the 1-yard line, and Elijah Thurman dropping a ball in the end zone, and Jermaine Copeland catching one that a touchdown that was called back on a holding penalty.
Sooner or later, that well runs dry. And when you're talking opportunities, Danny McManus gave the Calgary Stampeders a bit of a spark in 2 throws with the touchdown to Howell, but Joe Smith had the answer there.
Dickinson starts at the 47. Why not give it back to this guy? Joe Smith to the 44.
Well, the other side of it is that, well, you're not in every single meeting or every film session for the Lions as far as their offensive schemes go, etc. But I haven't seen Joe Smith make a glaring error in the blocking assignments, and that was another question mark you have with especially with a 34 defense like the Calgary Stampeders. Jacques Chapdelaine, the offensive coordinator, you got to wonder, will he pick up all those blitzing linebackers? I haven't seen him make a bad mistake in that department.
2nd and 8. Dickinson has time to unload deep. And that ball incomplete, intended for G-Roy Simon. Simon was open for a moment.
Yeah, he was, and he tried to time his jump. He was open in behind coverage, and it looked like it was Jermaine Chapman. Here's Simon into the inside receiver, number 81. Now he's going to go down the field. Nothing fancy about it, but watch how Chapman just continues. He's beat now. And Wes Lysak is in a trail position as well, but Chapman catches up on a slightly underthrown football from Dave Dickinson, who has lost the handle a couple of times.
So a punting situation, McCallum is in, as the Lions have no interest in attempting a 52-yard field goal. Playing the field position game. And that angled punt will go out at the 14-yard line. With 4:33 left and time running out on these Stampeders, in danger of losing their first at home and in danger of really creating a logjam in the West. Now, I'm not declaring this game over.
No,
because
no, you're not.
I made the mistake last night. But
we won't.
If this score held, Calgary would be 3-3. Saskatchewan 2-2, Edmonton 2-3, BC 3-3, and it just tightens up. And I was thinking the Saskatchewan Roughriders, the only team in the West that can sit back and say, we didn't really blow a missed opportunity to win a game. The 2 games they've lost, they lost. The other 3 teams are probably sitting at home thinking, how did we lose that one? And Dante Marsh almost had another pick. He's had 1 return for a touchdown tonight.
You know, I was going to mention that about Dante Marsh. One of the things a defensive back absolutely loves is when an interception chases a quarterback out of the game. When Dante Marsh intercepted that crossing route from Henry Burris, that was Henry Burris' last throw of this game so far. Danny McManus came in, and you, as a defensive back, you love that. You come in thinking, I just scared a quarterback. I just ran him out.
A little extra swagger on the corner.
He almost had another.
Sort of a walk-off interception. McManus looks downfield for Copeland, and this is picked. And Baron Miles has another, the league-leading 5th of the season, and he'll skip out at the 16. He promised Wally Buono 2 tonight. He's got 1, and he has 5 on the year.
And his 41st in the great career for Baron Miles. And whenever a ball is overthrown on a crossing route, you know one thing, it's trouble for the quarterback, because the safety's sitting back there reading the quarterback, and this is, of the 5 this season, the easiest, but they don't ask how, just how many, and that's the league-leading 5th.
Already has been declared a gladiator this year.
Yes, and in a game where he had an interception and was playing on a slightly bad hamstring and kept getting it worked on the sideline and back in there. For that toughness we gave him, gladiator.
Dickinson swings it out. Here's G-Roy Simon to the 10 and pushed out by Cedric Williams. 9 for G-Roy.
It was just an interesting turn of events for the BC Lions when you consider what's happened to them this year in so many of the 3 losses, that in this 4th quarter something bad has happened early to them, and they basically imploded after it. And when Danny McManus hit Marcus Howell, you got that feeling that, oh boy, here they go again. And Joe Smith seems to have ended any of that. They're playing crisp, good defense, and are knocking on the door.
2nd and 1. jumbo team in, and Joe Smith will burrow to the 5 and have a first down. 3-minute warning given to the benches with the Lions in charge here at McMahon.
By Rona, proud league-wide sponsor of the CFL. And by Rogers Wireless. Rogers brings you 2006 FIFA World Cup video highlights on the latest MP3 phones.
Lions had been outscored 61-21 in the fourth quarter so far this year. There's the line tonight, 7-7, but BC poised to get on the winning ledger in the fourth quarter, which might be an added statement in this game.
First goal, BC.
A first down and goal from the 6. And they don't get the play off.
That always amazes me if this is a delay of game too long.
Time count violation. BC number 12.
It always amazes
That's a loss
me.
of down. It'll be second down.
Loss of down inside the 3-minute warning.
Please reset the game clock to 2:35.
They'll fix the clock back to 2:35, but it always amazes me a time count violation coming out of a timeout.
Yeah.
You know, you have the play called, you know what you're going to do, and yet it happens quite often.
Dave Dickinson, the 2000 MVP in the CFL, and in this second half he's been matched up against the 1999 most valuable player, Danny McManus. Dickinson rolling, surrounded, and down he goes at the 7-yard line. Loss of 1, George White in the neighborhood. Haven't called that name much tonight. And George White, in 3 games, had taken the team lead in tackles with 21.
Yeah, and quietly had done it. I mean, you know, I saw that as well in the stats. 21 tackles leading the team, and you think, wow. I mean, we've done a few of these Stamps games, and we haven't talked a lot about George White making an impact. Now, he's coming off the injury, so often you want to just settle in, but he's settling in, making a contribution in a quiet way with all those tackles.
So on third down, McCallum in. And this, if good, will put the Stampeders 3 scores behind. Nice snap, McCallum puts it through, and it is a 19-point lead with 2 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. And a reminder that still ahead tonight, Sports Center, Darren Petition, Jennifer Hedger, bring you up to date on all the happenings in sport. They'll give you the details on the British Open, Blue Jays and Yankees, all the baseball, and more on tonight's game between the Lions and Stampeders. Coming up next, so the West appears to be tightening up, and it's just going to be like that all season long. I don't know if anything more than 12 wins is going to be necessary to take the West.
Well, 10-8 may put you in first, and 8-10 may put you in last.
There's McManus airing it out. And that ball out of the reach of Brett Ralph. Incomplete. Let's check the game story tonight.
Well, so far, Dante Marsh had that 62-yard interception and ran Henry Burris out of the game with it. Danny McManus comes in 2 throws, hits Marcus Howell on the second one for 81 yards. But Joe Smith responded with that 66-yard touchdown run, and all of a sudden those BC Lions built off that momentum from Joe Smith and have played probably their best fourth quarter of the 2006 season.
Lions just seem to have the Stamps number, especially since Wally Buono moved to the West Coast. Pass for Reynolds is picked off. And look who has it. He has his second of the game, as promised. True to his word, Baron Miles now has at least 1 per game in the first 6 of the CFL campaign.
Well, it's one thing to get him, it's another to call it and get him. And again, Baron Miles just sitting in the middle. This time he gets to rob the curl, which means he doesn't have to be deep as the deepest receiver. He takes any intermediate crossing route. He jumps the Joffrey Reynolds seam route going across. Reynolds trying to get into the middle of that area, about 15 yards down the field. And Baron Miles, with his veteran experience, has the option to step up in there and basically what's called rob the curl. He's going to feed a couple tonight.
Those safeties. Less than 2 minutes to go. Buck Pierce in for a little mop-up duty. Hands it to Joe Smith. And Smith down to the 7. Cut down by Khalid Abdullah, who's into the game at linebacker now.
42nd career interception for Baron Miles.
CFL leader.
Yeah, and it's a good lead. Coming into this week, Baron Miles had 4. The next guy was Cox in Montreal with 2. And that's coming into this week now with 6. Baron Miles is off and running for the interception title.
2nd and 2. Back to Smith. And Smith with a surge down to the 2 and a fresh set of downs.
Dickinson won't hit the 300-yard passing mark. So we look at his final numbers, and he'll have at least one throw he wants back. One of those interceptions will be the one he threw in the end zone. But other than that, he'll look up at the scoreboard, see the lead, and be just fine with the numbers as they are.
Buck Pierce trying to put the finishing touches on a solid BC Lion performance with so many questions being asked. Smith kicks it outside, and he'll be stuck there, a loss of 1. I want to go back to the quote from Dave Randorf at the start of the night from Wally Buono, Yogi Buono tonight. If we play 95% of the time, like we've played 75% of the time, we'd be 5-0. I think for 95% of this game, they've played as well as they have for 75% of the time, if that makes any sense.
I'm looking for a calculator. Carry the 7 times 2. But they're finishing, and that's been the difference tonight. Way better fourth quarter.
2nd and goal from the 3, and Joe Smith has his 3rd touchdown of the game.
And he, on this series of plays down here inside the 5-yard line, every time he has touched the ball, he has delivered a blow. He is just not satisfied with a little dance in the hole or anything like that. He has taken the ball, he has lowered his pad level, and he has delivered a blow on any tackler that dares to stand in front of him. Look how low he gets there, and it's Leaf Scott Coe he takes into the end zone there. I mean, every one of those plays,
he is a load, and it's funny the way things work out. A year ago, the BC Lions came to Calgary for their game at McMahon, and Wally Buono had a running back who scored 3 touchdowns that day, Antonio Warren. He makes the controversial switch, brings Joe Smith to Calgary this year, and his running back scores 3 touchdowns, just like a year ago.
You know, it's interesting, watch his demeanor on the sideline. He's sort of business as usual. He goes and sits at the end of the bench, gets his rest, gets off his legs, and has not really shown a whole lot of emotion outwardly. But when he gets on the field, he's showing some intensity.
Yes, and I think I know where you're going this week.
Well, in his first game ever, the question was, could he catch? How about that one over the middle after getting smacked? 66 yards after a touchdown by the Calgary Stampeders. A great move in the open field with some speed.
That was the backbreaker.
Without question. And then delivering some blows down here to finish it off just to make that statement. So, in his first game in Canadian football, Joe Smith not only probably will be one of the offensive stars of the week, but he is also a gladiator. I salute you.
And one of the reasons, see, not a cloud in the sky, no rain, didn't have to bring his umbrella.
Oh, he's used to it by now.
What a performance. And I can hear Matt Dunnigan saying, well, what do you expect, Louisiana Tech? McCallum adds the extra point. 43-17. And once again, a reminder, next Friday, Wendy's CFL on TSN. Friday night football doubleheader, beginning with those 4-2 Bombers in Hamilton, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 Pacific, followed by the unbeaten Alouettes. They take on the Eskimos, licking their wounds after last night. Both games available in TSN high definition.
BC Lions have just reversed their trend. They've done the opposite. In the fourth quarter, they had been outscored coming in. They have 30 points for and 10 points against in the fourth quarter. So they have, or excuse me, in the second half. And so they have reversed that trend.
Tom Higgins didn't like anything he saw from his team in Hamilton. Not much on a positive slant for this team tonight. And so the Stampeders back to square one. And Henry Burris will have a lot to ponder this week.
Yeah, not Henry Burris' best game. I mean, he made some tough, bad decisions, and you can't sugarcoat it. Everybody loves Henry Burris, and Henry Burris will be back next week, I'm sure, as the starting quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders.
The good news for Henry Burris, and excuse me for breaking in, but it's Calgary at Saskatchewan next week.
He plays well there.
So for Henry Burris, that's where he usually shines. But the Saskatchewan Roughriders will have a look. Oh, baby, what a hit there. Corey Banks nailing Wes Cates as they put an exclamation mark on this Lions win.
Well, the Calgary Stampeders take exception to Corey Banks standing over his target. Especially with the score the way it is, but you got to keep playing until the final gun sounds, as the Edmonton Eskimos found out last night.
Wally Bono saying, that's what I mean by finish.
Yeah.
Right till the final gun.
And you know, Joe Smith did that in the last series when he scored.
35, 15-yard penalty, first down.
Otis Floyd will get the taunting call, but it was actually Corey Banks standing over
Wes Cates.
Wes Cates, yeah. Big hit there. That's what they didn't like. That's what Calgary didn't like. And I don't blame them. But again, you played to the end. And Joe Smith, on 4 runs down in the goal line area until he scored, he plays to the end. Wally Buono doesn't want Calgary to score any garbage points down the stretch here, in case he comes down in what will be a tight West Division to points.
Here's Joffrey Reynolds. Big hole for Reynolds. He'll pad his stats to the 35 of BC, a 19-yard gallop with under a half minute remaining. And tempers getting short. Dante Marsh having words with Marcus Howell.
They get short, and this is where that conversation always creeps in about, does a team run up the score and things like that. And you know, I'm of the opinion, and I was a former defensive player, that if you can't stop a team from scoring points, then don't say anything after that they ran up the score. This is professional football, and it's up to you. It's your responsibility, and sometimes you're in games where you just get on the wrong end of a butt kicking. But the bottom line is, I don't agree at all with complaining about a team running up a score.
And we've talked about how tight the division could finish, and who knows, the differential could be a deciding factor. Tight coverage there, too tight. Marsh and Howell, and they go grill to grill again and continue their discussion.
And it's tough to keep playing at the same level when you have such a big lead, but it's also an attitude that you want to continue to install. I mean, you want to practice until the very end of practice hard. You want to play every game till the last second goes off the clock hard. And that builds good habits. And that's why Wally Buono, a couple of plays ago, was halfway on the field talking to his defense. He doesn't want them to give up some garbage points.
Well, I know it's stating the obvious, but that's the most relaxed we've seen him today. Before the game, I thought he was going to strap on the pads.
Yeah, Although the pass was untouchable, we have an illegal contact. BC number 31. That's a 10-yard penalty from the point of last scrimmage. First down.
bit of a point of emphasis for the officials going into this season to change that up. If a ball isn't catchable and contact is made, they can make the decision to call it illegal contact rather than pass interference. I like that decision because pass interference could be a 60, 70-yard penalty depending on how far the throw was.
So the Lions will win 4 straight against Calgary. Wally Buono will be 7-1 against his old team.
So we're giving it up at
14 seconds to go. McManus, Furman at the 16. Well, I took a look down there. There was no Milt Stiegel on the field.
That's right. You can't score 3, 4 touchdowns in one play. Still amazing finish last night. I mean, typical of the Canadian Football League that you cannot leave a game until it's over if it's within a score or 2. And boy, I don't know. I know we'll see a ton of tight finishes before this season is over and great finishes, but we may never see a 100-yard play at the end.
We talked about how important maybe points are down the line, and apparently Tom Higgins believes in that because Sandro DeAngelis has been sent out to get 3 points.
Well, and that's why.
And a lot of people say, what a stretch, but you know,
I think you do it.
Who knows?
Who knows? It comes down to points at the end of the year for a home playoff game, and you miss it by 2. You know, I don't disagree with that decision at all.
DeAngelis puts it through on the final play of the game, and the BC Lions are back in the win column, and they move to 3-3. Calgary is at 3-3 in the ever so close CFL West.
The CFL on TSN is brought to you by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet, and by General Motors of Canada and all its divisions.
Time now for the TSN Turning Point, brought to you by the 2007 Chevy Avalanche. This happened in the 3rd quarter. Henry Burris tries to throw the run, has his pocket picked by Dante Marsh. He turned it into a 62-yard interception return for a touchdown, his first interception of the season, and that was the backbreaker for the Calgary Stampeders as the Lions never looked back. They led the whole way. A cash donation will be made to the Coaching Association for the training and development of Canadian coaches on behalf of TSN and the 07 Chevy Avalanche, the most flexible vehicle out there. Tomorrow, the CFL on CBC will wrap up week number 6 with the Toronto Argonauts trying to bounce back with Ricky Williams. They are going to be in Regina taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We are coming at you next Friday night for another doubleheader on Wendy's Friday Night Football. The Blue Bombers, fresh off their win, will be in Hamilton to take on Jason Moss and the Ticats. The Owls are out west to take on Edmonton. The player of the game brought to you by Rogers Wireless, as voted by you with 29% of the vote. Dave Dickinson with 264 yards passing, a couple of touchdowns. A bend but not break effort for the BC Lions as they snap a 2-game losing streak and win this game in Calgary tonight. And now it's Calgary that's lost 2 in a row. On behalf of Schultze and Matt and Jock and Chris Cuthbert and Glenn Suter at McMahon Stadium, this is Dave Brandner saying thanks for watching. Sports Center is coming up right about now.